Welcome back to the desk. We're on our second best of three for quarterfinals for Unified Proving Ground Circuit Qualifier 1. We've got Winthrop up against Wildcard Gaming after an exciting 2-1 series with Golden Guardians Academy and Team No Team. What are y'all's thoughts heading into this best of three?
Well, I'm actually really intrigued because this is the last collegiate team up against one of the major amateur teams in the scene. Wildcard was absolutely running the table last year, last summer, in a lot of the events, and so I'm really excited to see what Winthrop is able to do because they've sort of come into this quarterfinal now as some upstarts almost, upsetting IMT AOE and Dare in their group. To be able to make it out as the first seed, and then Wildcard maybe being a little bit quieter than people have expected means that this matchup is closer than I think our pre-tournament expectations had accounted for.
Yeah, Winthrop definitely looked like a bit of a dark horse this tournament, and the reason that the way I'm going to attempt to explain this, right, is kind of the dynamic that being a collegiate team kind of brings to you, right? As a collegiate captain myself, right, and someone that's also used to play in the amateur scene. I find it a lot more enjoyable to play on a CLOL team than I did to play on an amateur team. And here's why. It's because it fosters a much better team environment personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, the turnover for collegiate is not like it is for the rest of amateur. It's like, well, I go to, Winthrop, like my mid laner did bad. Let's kick him, move out of your dorm, go. You can't really do that to people, right? You kind of, these teams do build their rosters and they have, they have their rosters formed with scholarships, right? You do sort of have to play the hand you're dealt to an extent, and that really it really helps just kind of gel. You meet the people in real life, you get to do other things with them as well besides just meet them to play League of Legends. And at a lot of these schools you're on scholarship and you get to have a lot of fun learning how to play, and that's kind of what I love about collegiate and the dynamic, right? It really allows you to grow as a player, it allows you to grow as a teammate, it allows you to grow as a person as well. And so I'm a big fan of that. That's what I think has given Winthrop a bit of a leg up.
Yeah, and who are your guys' Manny, you can start your players to watch in this series?
Right. So my player is Mabud so far. He's very new to the scene, and this is his first major competitive team after Dare last season. That was where he debuted. Now he's at Winthrop, and he's put up pretty good numbers so far. The thing is, he's going up against pretty much the ultimate veteran final boss top laner in amateur, and that's Alorum, right? Don't get me wrong, Mabud has gone up against some pretty good top laners in Group C, but Alorum has a bit of a reputation at this point for kind of chewing up and spitting out new top laners with his army of weird pocket picks that he can just pull out at any time, right? Watch out for the AD Nico, for example. And I think he's kind of on another level compared to anyone that Mabud has faced in this tournament so far. So I'm really interested to see if he how he does against Alorum himself, right?
The ultimate test for sure. And Hawk, what do you think?
I first of all, I love the idea that Alorum is the gatekeeper of amateur top laners because it's so true. Like, this guy has been around for forever now, and he is very good and plays a lot of champions. If you're a top laner and you haven't beat Alorum, then it's on your bucket list, I feel like, in a certain way. But sort of looking over at the other side, though, on Wildcard, their roster as a whole is made up of mainstays in the amateur scene. I mean, we have the likes of Alorum, Griffin, Strumpist, Minwi, and Pakis, the other Griffin, of course, in the jungle. These are all players that have been around for at least a year now, and they all have excellent experience and are well known for the plays that they are able to make. But my personal player that I'm really looking to is Pakis down there in the support role. Of course, Wildcard did come into the tournament into the open qualifier with Rhino as their support, but he was yoinked up by Team Liquid Academy, actually. So now Pakis, who played for Wildcard Aces, who, by the way, was eliminated from the tournament by Winthrop in Game 5 of the open qualifier. So already Winthrop sort of reaping some of Wildcard's talent, and Pacus gets a little bit of a revenge opportunity here, and I'm really interested to see how he's able to fill those shoes. Of course, in the group stage, played relatively well up against Bay State in particular, and I'm mostly interested in the consistency because Rhino was an extremely consistent support and obviously very good for good enough to be caught up into Academy, and Pacus, while good in his own right, oftentimes doesn't have the same consistency. I feel like a lot of the time he's the kind of support that it can be a little bit more coin flippy. He either wins you the game with sick engages or runs it down a little bit. So I've really got my eyes on which side of Pacus we might be seeing today.
Now, Hawk, are you gonna stick with the amateur train predictions all the way, or are you switching it up?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sad. You can see it, second column right there. I had gone full amateur semifinals. I'm going to stick with Wildcard. I feel like the experience on Wildcard's roster is really just what has me. I mean, we talked about how long Alorum's been around, Griffin as well, Strampus, all these players have the experience behind them. Looking at the caster predictions, actually pretty split across the board. 5 for Wildcard and 6 for Winthrop. So a lot of back and forth here. I'm actually really curious whether or not Manny and I will be in agreement or dissension on this, but I think experience will win the day for Wildcard. They haven't really shown up on the tournament yet, but I think some of that can be attributed to changing in supports. And so, up against the likes of Winthrop, who I think is a strong but not overwhelming opponent, Wildcard should be able to prevail and maybe even start to ramp up towards the semifinals.
Well, I saw what you predicted earlier today, and I've gotta commit. This time you went with Wildcard. I'm taking Winthrop 2-1 here. I think they're gonna pull off the upset. I don't think Wildcard has fully gelled as a roster just yet, especially after their support got sent up to Academy. I'm thinking the Power of Dream is gonna win it here for Winthrop.
For sure. Well, we're going to send it to the casters, and we will have to see how these games turn out. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Izzy. Thank you, Analyst Desk, and welcome back to the Casting Desk again. My name, Eric Desrox Patran, Dean, Rebel Fox, Merrick, and Winthrop versus Wildcard. Dean, I think we're split on this one.
Yeah, it is the only one that we disagreed on today. The combination between all of us. In fact, it's actually the more tumultuous game. I wasn't expecting that. I expect a lot more wildcard votes today, and that not a lot of people would have their throppers out. But apparently, we got a bunch of them here on the entirety of the deck, so we can appreciate that. A lot of people under the support after the movement and after the changes that were made over the course of the entire split. Winthrop literally went from losing their first match at Open Qualifiers, almost dropping out, to coming out first seed and now having one of the top 4 seeds in the entire tournament, playing up against Wildcard to continue on into the semifinals.
Yeah, this is becoming somewhat of a low-key Cinderella story, if you will. They're a team that not too many had faith in, seeing the departure of some of the stars of yesteryear's roster, but they've been making some strides. We saw that they sniped a collegiate tournament, first place finish on their way to this tournament, and now they're producing upset after upset. Looking at the bracket, they were able to upset Immortals AoE. They took a 2-0 against Dare, who were looking pretty prominent and pretty spicy after their match against Supernova. They are bringing it, and they're bringing it well.
They truly are. We can be really happy with the results that the team has actually been capable of putting out thus far. On the opposite side, I think Wildcard has had moments where they've looked incredible, and there's moments where they actually have not looked super, super superb, which is really confusing because this team has loaded with talent, right? Like they have Alorum on the top side. They've got Griffin in the jungle. They've got Strampus, who got added into the mid lane, who's an incredible mid laner, also out of Collegiate, by the way, to be able to compete up against that Winthrop squad. And then, of course, you're bringing in now a new support in Pacus to be able to join in alongside Minwi. A little bit indicative of what we had actually seen from previous splits. I know Bradley isn't exactly a perfect stand-in for Strampus, but both of them came out of Collegiate. You have a brand new ADC who's making, I guess in this case, Minwi versus Arrow is a little bit of a weird comparison. But then also you have the experienced player in Daption versus Pacus. It's very reflective of what we saw from previous iterations of the roster from Wildcard.
So ready to hit a pretty quick draft here. I believe we still need some fixing in the logos because I do see that Kha'Zix ban. It doesn't make sense that Winthrop would ban it. Me and you both know Mordio loves that champion. He doesn't want to play League of Legends. He just wants to play Kha'Zix.
There's so many members on Winthrop that like need to be shouted out for the performances that they've been able to have. I think Kenji is a big one because he came in after he was kind of isolated from the rest of the team and was able to make a massive impact. But Mordio stepping up for Frost Forest when Frost Forest got moved to the next level. Mordio has gone insane on this team. He's got some of the highest, I think actually the highest CS per minute, has some really good damage numbers when it comes to what he does on Winthrop. He has been, to me, the standout performer here.
He's performed on 2 different levels as well. It's not just the power farming, it's not just getting all that. He applies so much early pressure while power farming. He's been a great addition to Winthrop and what they've been able to do. Especially his interactions with Ivano. Ivano was slipping up earlier in the year. They got this energy together. They're able to find some balance. Now over at Winthrop, Winthrop. I'm seeing 2 W's, so I'm just going to say both are Winthrop. Over at Wildcard, quickly picking up the Jinx, but Winthrop have a retort, and that is going to be Ezreal and Karma.
Yeah, Vex, the self-proclaimed best Ezreal in NA, actually showed it off pretty heavily against Dare. I think that was a pretty solid game. Combined with Kenji, who's going to be able to use this Karma to pretty solid avail in the bottom side to help out not only the Ezreal to get roaming out and about on the map we saw in the previous game, should be enough to be able to control. Again, Vex oftentimes is going to be sitting there as a stone wall on the bottom side of the map. We talked about that a lot last time we covered this team. Here, we actually see a very different look for Wildcard. They go to the Soraka as the response to the Karma, which to me, super interesting. It locks you into lane. But no way the Sona also gets locked in here, right?
Okay.
Right, there's toying with our
There's
emotions
some
here.
hidden tech that just waiting for it.
Oh.
Still waiting for it. I don't want to say
It's
anything
not
too
gonna
fast. Okay, yeah, Lee Sin getting locked in. I mean, he's had standout play on both Lee Sin and Xin Zhao during the open qualifiers. Griffin is very prominent on that show.
Yes, this is the champion that he was famous on. I got to talk a lot about Vex from back in the Challenger Series days, but also Griffin goes back to the Challenger Series days, and his Lee Sin was what kind of drew him a bunch of attention as a massive gameplay or game changer when he was inside of that series, kind of qualifying for the LCS. So I'm happy to see he's back on that namesake for himself. The Soraka pick still is the most interesting to me, at least though. I know somewhere out there's somebody that's going to be claiming that this needs to go into the mid lane, but in the bottom lane, I think it draws quite a bit of interest as well, because you have the combined wave clear from the Karma and the Soraka can change how like the Jinx and the Ezreal interact in this lane, and this responds pretty well. Combine that with like Soraka with a Lee Sin in the early game. If you get those 2 together, all of a sudden you have this like battering ram of you can't kill Lee Sin ever. He beats you down with his fists and his feet, and if he decides to lower even a little bit of his health bar, Soraka just puts it right back in place, so there's not much you can do. And if you have the audacity to try to flash or use an ability to get away, you're just going to get silenced.
All right, so that lock-in coming in from Wildcard. Winthrop responding with the victor. Second phase of the draft now coming underway. So Wildcard are going to start targeting the jungle pool, taking away the J4 for the time being. You can't imagine why Mordio has been performing so well on Winthrop, so target is definitely welcomed over on the side of Winthrop, as they are going to ban away over towards the mid lane pool, taking away the Syndra as well as the Lux.
There is no Karthus ban yet, and I know this composition does not beg for Karthus right now because you've got Ezreal and you've got Victor, which is just a double scaling combination from Winthrop. But this was kind of the pick for Mordio oftentimes, and I wonder if they are actually kind of leaning to that because they've got the Lee Sin in their back pocket, and they're challenging them to say, okay, go ahead and pick the Karthus jump, because if you do, we're just going to try to bully it. That's something that I think Griffin is willing to take the matchup of, which is why normally you might see it banned out, especially in a second rotation where you're focusing jungle. Other teams might do that, but I feel like Griffin is confident enough now with his pocket Soraka potentially to just go bully anybody on this map that he wants, and so they're challenging him to say that, because if you do, he's just going to walk in, and again, we go back to the beatdown type area.
Is this going to get locked in?
I hope so.
Rek'Sai for Mordio. Okay, I mean, if you can't get one bug, I guess you go for the other. Kha'Zix was denied. The Queen gets locked in. Rek'Sai for Winthrop.
Is Rek'Sai a bug? He just said. Okay. I mean, I'll call it a bug. Yeah. Okay.
Producer,
master.
stop. No, a bug now.
Yeah, producer, the master of League of Legends lore, confirming that is indeed not a bug. Thank you very much, Mr.
Wait, thought I was the master. Why are you getting our producer in on this?
It's just an interesting matchup because now, I mean, it's perhaps the one champion that against pretty much anything in the early game is going to win that one-on-one combination. You got the knock-up, you got the insanely powerful combination of the Q and the E. When you build lethality, this champion becomes a menace. And so here, roster, the Lee Sin, pretty much the only champion in the game that would have a chance up against it in the earlier stages would be like Kha'Zix, maybe Trundle, and then also Rek'Sai, who's the third one. Again, if you got a pocket Soraka, you're still not looking at this great, but at minimum now you have something that can compete with it. My problem is this team didn't draft much Engage. Yes, you have the single target knockup now for Mordio. That's pretty cool to think about. And you've got this insane Mabut Gwen, which can go off in teamfights. We were there to cast it when we saw it last week. But a fear is, how are you really going to engage or find somebody to frontline for this Victor Ezreal if you don't have a really significant way to start a teamfight?
And then on the other side with Wildcard, they do have some creative ways to find engages. Of course, Alorum, you know, we've always known him to draft towards the tanky, towards the beastly. Still going for it right now. He's pulled out the Urgot a few times, bread and butter on the Ornn. Now it's time to unbench the Kench. He's going to play it on the top side. Enables lots of creative ways to get into the fight with the Abyssal Voyage, being able to get the knockup in there. And of course, having Griffin on the Lee Sin, we already talked about this being a bread and butter champion for him. There's a lot of threats that can start these engagements off for Wildcard.
Yeah, I like a number of things. Number one, Minwi also on like a hyper carry is kind of the again, to say, we're going to use the term a lot, but it's bread and butter. Like that and the Tahm Kench are two things that you would expect all the time from Wildcard, because it cancels out the top lane matchup. Oftentimes, Alorum's going to find himself at an advantage, and then Minwi is able to absorb resources now with this Soraka potentially on the bottom side, and especially with all the pushing power they've got, they should have enough to compete in bottom river. It's kind of crazy to think what Wildcard was able to get away with here. And not to mention, the Soraka pick is devastating to this Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai, again, if you pocket into the Lee Sin, you can't really kill the Lee Sin. It's just not going to happen through the Rek'Sai, no matter how much damage you got in the early game. And if you eventually get into the teamfighting phase, Rek'Sai's only real value is to try to assassinate somebody or to try to get in and get a knockup against the priority target, both of which are shut out pretty much immediately by Soraka throwing a silence on top of somebody and then healing them because there's just not enough damage out of the Rek'Sai in the later stages of the game. Like, that champion is effectively invalidated unless Mordio just avoids it like the plague.
And it puts a tough spot for Winthrop to be in. Again, we were split completely on the outcome of this match. Personally, for me, I like the Cinderella story. I like the underdog story of Winthrop. It reminds me of last year's Winthrop. We're seeing it come out now. I do want to put attention to some of these players because we haven't had a chance to really talk about them too much. You know, over on Winthrop's side, the one player that has stuck out over in the UPL season last year was Mabud. He's a character we keep bringing up again and again. And his champion pool has been phenomenal, just how wide it is. You ask the question, what does Mabud play? Answer is pretty much just yes. He's a dependable piece that you can play and draft around both on the strong side, both on the weak side. And it is another contest here to go against someone so as experienced as Alora.
Yeah, he can take champions that fit into the Alorum wheelhouse of just kind of sandbagging the lane. I know you are begging for a Mundo game, and we might actually get that if this lane doesn't go particularly well for Mabut. But also, we've seen him as a difference maker inside of big team fights. And this is a game where it feels like he's going to have to be a big difference maker inside of a team fight. Because again, when you don't have frontline and you don't have a bunch of really consistent engage, flanking or finding a really big kind of AoE fight for this Gwen to succeed in can rip through the health bar of pretty much everybody. It's going to force out the ultimate from the Soraka. It's going to force out a defensive tools to get you burnt pretty much immediately, and that opens up for the Victor and Ezreal to focus more damage into individual targets potentially. So eyes are on Mabut because, like you said, this is the best test we're going to see of him because Alorum is just an absolute tank in the top lane. It is impossible to get him to bend. Statistically, I think he's commanding every single category of stat that you could possibly track as a top laner right now inside of this tournament. He is a menace to all top laners trying to accomplish anything.
If only we could see him on the old favorite, the Wukong. Maybe get a Wukong versus Mundo matchup, just for the memes of it. Rebel, don't you criticize my ability to draft?
No. I have no problems with it. Listen, everybody would like to see a Wukong game out of the old school one trick. I mean, but he's expanded the pool, right? Like, he's gone from Wukong to like Wukong, Urgot, Tahm Kench. Like, he's added so much to the pool. Got to 3 champions that he's famous for over the. He can play anything. He's great at a lot of different champions. It's just he has these very particular set of champions that he's extremely good at, and it's not shocking to see the kind of effect he can have on games change when he's on some of those types of reference picks.
He doesn't buy into the gotcha gamer top lanes. He wants those beasts, man. Yeah, you don't remember the old days of like the beefy boys in the top lane, the Aatrox, Urgots, Ornns. Miss that meta. I don't care if people call it a wet noodle meta. I honestly do miss it.
That is okay. Very nice. Winthrop, get the ward. They are at a commanding gold lead in this game. They're pretty important.
Commanding.
Commanding. I mean, Yeah,
it's already
incredible.
over.
Yeah, the game might as well be. Biggest thing though, of course, we get to see this interaction with a laner again, where once again, my bud was actually. This is a fantastic opportunity to talk about just how incredible Macro Hard has been for us over the entire tournament. Look at this kind of gold advantage that we've seen. Look how incredible that would have been.
It's just a red bar,
It's just a red bar. It's all red, man. How are you supposed to deal with that? Winthrop's colors are red anyway. Like, how are you supposed to deal with it? It's impossible. Malbud picked up the ward, which is important because, again, level 2, 6 minions in, could be a moment where if he gets the dash and he gets the Q, there's some possibility to fight into Alarm very quickly, especially before Alarm picks up any additional ability. So you do have to at least watch that potentially to be a difference maker in the top wave. It's unlikely it's going to make too much of a difference, but at least the thought is there that Medbud has that option available to him.
I hate the fact that that's actually a thing. That you could just outright win a lane, given the conditions, by just taking down a ward at level 1. Gets me to level 2 faster. I mean, we kind of got like bits of it of what could go on the level 1 when we saw Tony top and Dragoon going at it with that Darius matchup.
Yeah, things got a little bit scrappy there, but fortunately it didn't end up losing that lane for anybody. We love the Soraka Gaming as well. They get the push to start with. It's very nice to see Pogus actually be able to pull out something like this, because you don't see a bunch of flexing, especially to enchanters from the support pool. We see it around the world where, like, you're seeing, like, Yuumi is still first picked in some places, Sona as a response, Soraka is taken. There's so many other enchanters, and we just stick to, like, Karma Lulu most of the time, especially inside of amateur. So it's nice to see when players have these, like, back pocket champions that they can pull out, especially, like, the Soraka, which it feels like the entire time that I've existed has never really been a part of the meta, except for that, like, 2016 MSI run that was held by CLG where Afromu, like, solo killed somebody at level 1 with Sona or something like that. He, like, roamed mid lane, if you remember that. Outside of that, enchanters have never been good enough to actually play, so I'm happy to see they're finally coming back to the meta.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a Twitter post to show up from Wolverine telling you why you're wrong and Soraka's always been meta all along.
Listen, I'm just trying to hype up the champion, okay? Like, I don't want any smoke, please.
And in the state of game, Invade coming in from Griffin, not going to be spotted by Mordio. He will have the Tremor Sense to detect his movement if he does get close enough. Going to spot it right now as the Sweeper comes out. Griffin comes in with the Sonic Wave, Resonating Strike. The knock comes out from Mordio. Not going to get too much damage on the side of Mordio, but Griffin is finding what he needs to. Smite comes out, able to get some health back, and 1v1 going to be conceded.
Yeah, lost because of the roaming Strumpist. The random Strumpist not accounted for most of the time, so Mordio just takes a step out of that situation. It was actually going okay. The initial engagement by Lee Sin meant that he got a bit of burst damage to start things off, and again, the sustain that he's got kept him inside of that fight, but I still think things could have actually gone into the favor of Mordio had that fight continued a little bit further, but thankfully, again, Strumpist's movement right there actually helps out Griffin, make sure that there is no chance. That one-on-one is not one that you're going to take most of the time. In the early stages, it's going to be a lot more even. And again, it's lane pressure that really decides whether you're allowed to continue fighting or not. So Mordio just pushed out, going to deny him a little bit more kind of early pressure. Again, Rek'Sai has to get so much done in the early game compared to Lee Sin to be effective in the mid and late game that it's ridiculous. So shutting him out even just a little bit, even a couple of farm here or there, a couple of camps, denying him a gank, that's really all that's necessary to make sure that the Rek'Sai is not going to feel very good.
Kind of forgot that this was Ivano versus Strumpist in the mid lane. This is definitely one to watch onto. I mean, if you talk experience, Strumpist is the man. Back when I first started casting, you know, his name has always been in the highest regards when it comes to North American Amateur. So Ivano having a tough matchup here, calling over for Mordio to potentially get a gank, but not going to find too much. Actually jumping forward is going to be Strumpist, but we'll get out in time. No gravitational field to block him from his escape.
It's really interesting to me just because, Strumpist actually, this is a little bit outside the comfort zone. He is known so often not only for, like, first off, Ryze, obviously, but then also, like, Lucian was added to that pool. I think LeBlanc was added to that pool. Azir's in that pool. Cassiopeia's in that pool. Consistent damage dealers, plus LeBlanc seem to be the kind of general theme of it. So the Akali is a little bit interesting just because it's a little bit more of a branch outside of what we typically see from Strumpist's wheelhouse. I know he's a self-proclaimed amazing team fighter. This game's going to test that, because if he can get onto Vex and just eviscerate Vex or Ivano before a fight really ever starts, that's going to be a humongous takeaway, and it's going to remove a lot of the treads from the tires of Winthrop.
Pushing pressure is going to be Alorum, shoving the wave in onto my bud. But my bud will get some harassment back. Overall, going to be a slow game to start this off. Not too much pressure going to be applied. Barely getting back from the recall is going to be Mordio trying to get towards his top camp as Griffin works his way on his top camp, just having the Gromp. Shoving the wave will be Strumpist, and just waiting for any setup to come out of these squads, and that setup might be towards this top side.
Ooh.
As Griffin begins the roam up, Mordio is in the wings. Might have spotted him out with the tremor sense right there, as long as his camera was backed up far enough. Not sure if the ping went through. There is a rotation coming in. Kenji over on the top side as well. Might be expecting Griffin to go for a gank here. Griffin focusing over towards the mid lane.
Yeah, they actually spot that out. Ivano could be under threat if gank focuses here as well.
Not going to be enough damage. Nowhere near. You definitely need that Sonic Wave Resonating Strike to really lead in with that one if they are going to find that kill.
You got to find a bit more burst damage onto him, especially if they're able to tag then effectively the silence. There's no way out of that situation for Ivano. It is at least indicative of very good things from Wildcard, where they're planning around what their champions are capable of doing. And again, it's about putting the Lee Sin and the Soraka together as much as possible, whether it's ganking for Strumpus or anywhere else on the map. I think those two in tandem with one another are really how they cement this early game going extremely heavily in the favor of themselves. Whereas Winthrop, to me, again, Mordio has to do quite a bit. Their composition scales well, but again, I struggle to see how it is exactly that a Victor and then also an Ezreal are going to be able to command enough of this lead to really demolish in the later stages. They're going to have to throw a bunch of damage into a Lorem. Griffin's going to be moving around quite a bit. Strumpus is going to be hard to hit. And then you just have this massive health pool of pockets with Minwi in the backline, who's going to be throwing auto attacks in the other direction. I feel without one really significant engage, it's going to force Mordio into a position where he has to find a fantastic knockup for them to really find effect. Look at the damage trade. And it's right back into his health bar.
Oh, and
It's
here we
right
go.
there.
Yeah, the healing from Soraka just so good. Minui
It's full health.
suffering no pain whatsoever. It's been healed right up. The band-aid is applied, and Griffin now stalks Vex, waiting in the bush, right in the river, waiting for that resonating strike, Sonic Wave follow-up. And here he comes, just going to show himself now. Here comes the Sonic Wave. Doesn't want to follow up, though, underneath the tower. Team not close enough. Genji there to provide some defense. Thoughtful attempt, but no cigar.
Yeah, I think what would have probably worked out at best in that situation is if you land the Q onto Vex and then you try to ward hop over to Kenji, land like the E and then slow him down and then throw the silence on top of Kenji right there. Because if Kenji gets baited into throwing a Q or something at Bacchus, that almost certainly catches him off guard. And that means that Winthrop goes down in that situation. Instead, Griffin just turns to the Dragon, but all three members are going to show up here. Mid laner's actually getting after it. Oh, it's actually Mordio and Strumpus getting after it right now.
Strumpus in a tough spot there, but Mordio's starting to get low. Tries to put in the tether. The rocket almost landing onto Mordio. Just barely able to flash away. Wildcard getting control back. Now trying to jump forward. Unable to get it. The smite will go over. Wildcard getting it. But look at the pop shots coming in from Vex.
Mordio.
Still trying to find more. Can't seem to get close enough in time. So Wildcard, they'll be able to get the dragon and get out.
He's got a little tumultuous right there.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and here comes
Trying to kill
Laura,
him,
able
Mabud.
to take away my bud. First blood going over to Laura.
Trying to pop the ultimate at the last second, maybe to get some healing, but Alorem just finding the one-on-one kill in the top lane is our first kill in the entire game. Going over to the Tom Kent. You got to see what actually happened here. But throw down the W, expecting the ultimate not to be able to actually tag him. I think if he had actually reactivated the ability to pull it to him, it might have canceled it. But I'm not sure if that was available or whether or not that interaction just wasn't quite ready. I know it drags with you when you need outside the zone, but I think you can reactivate it to pull it, and that would have made sure that the Tom Kent was outside the zone. Again, this is just speculation of something that could have happened one way or another. It is just Alorem being able to find the solo kill onto Mabud, which it's not humongous, but the Tom Kench is a little difficult to kill when he gets really kind of beefy. Thankfully, you have Victor and you have Ezreal. Both of them are really consistent damage to put into a Tom Kench. They aren't bad champions for doing so, like other champions might be in other situations. So fortunately, they're not going to struggle too heavily with that. But again, shutting down Mabud is a fair amount of the team fight that could come out in a flank being taken out of Winthrop's.
Rough early start coming out from Mabud as Winthrop begin to rotate towards the Rift Herald. With some early priority over there. Mordio was waiting a while for the rest of his team to start to show up. Mabud will get the first movement over towards the Rift Herald, giving priority. Griffin now watching as he does get some sight of what's going on. It's getting lower and lower. Close there. Griffin trying to get the steal away. Will land. Sonic Wave. Will he follow up? Resonating Strike comes in. Looking for the tether. Will be Kenji. Can't follow up with any more, though. Griffin backs off.
Able to get out pretty safely. Q lands. Both of them have to stop the backs to make sure that there is no play right there. Support was there from Wildcard, but not quite fast enough to be able to catch them off. So the Rift Herald goes to the side of Winthrop. It's about picking the target you want to get this goal. Again, it's thought process here of like Victor getting gold valuable, Ezreal getting gold valuable, Gwen getting gold valuable. To me, this is just a situation. Oh, actually, Madbud has it, so it's going to be really hard to use anywhere but top lane. This actually forces Mordio's hand to play more towards the top side of the map. I wonder if Wildcard preempt this and they just begin to start to play more towards the bottom side, or even just like defensively cover the top side, knowing that that's probably just where that's going to be placed, because there's no way for Madbud really to get anywhere else unless he just roams mid and drops it.
It wouldn't be the biggest deficit to draw attention. Winthrop putting their attention over towards the top side instead of the bot side. You still have that Ezreal. It's still a very safe pick. You can get Kenji to roam out and leave that lane without worrying too much about Vex in the process. That being said, though, still more being fished for from Wildcard as they put down this ward. Hiding in the bush there, calling over Griffin in the process. Trying to set their traps. The bait is there, but no one going to take it just yet. Still over the wall is going to be Griffin. Doesn't opt in for the Sonic Wave. But they're invading your jungle, Mordio. Be careful about that one.
Yeah, Mordio is in a very bad situation right now. He's down 20 CS right now on this Rek'Sai. You haven't found a situation where he's able to find like a really good gank angle and hasn't been able to find any semblance of like a one-on-one or anything like that against Griffin, or a gank really to any success at all. And that means that this Rek'Sai slowly is just falling to the wayside. It's not gone yet, because again, it looks like right now he's going to be going towards either the Goredrinker. I think that's actually the Stride Breaker that he's going for a little bit more damage and the slow to be able to catch somebody afterwards. But I think that's a better blanket build. But again, the Rek'Sai is not suddenly going to become a beast because he has that build in his path.
Oh, chasing down Pacus. Pacus takes a good chunk of damage. It's one of the things you can do in the Soraka lane. If you go after Minui, he's going to keep getting healed up. If you go after Pacus, he can't put that heal on himself. He can wither away at some of that health.
Oh. But they try to engage on him. They cut him off from the other angle. Alorum actually finds himself on the wrong side of history right now, I have to assume.
Yeah, not realizing that Winthrop were on the way. Mordio looking to show up, but Griffin is there to provide some backup. So is Strompest. Strompest starts to hop in, gets some damage onto Mordio, falls to about half health. Mordio has to flash away. Barely able to escape that. Very dangerous as the Super Mega Death Rocket is fired. Will it find its mark? It does! Minui! So good! So perfect with that shot, and that is going to cue Wildcard to try and find more. They go after Kenji, kicked against the wall. Griffin will take him down. My bud watching his bud fall as a true shot barrage comes out, but Vex, it doesn't look the same when it's fired from you. It looks better when it's fired from Minui.
Goodness gracious. This is the youngster that Wildcard was training in the last season to become the next ADC for this squad, and you could see the value that he has. First off, I was just floored by this. I was like, okay, Alorum's just looking for the 1v1. He has no idea there's two members coming, but he had two of his own. Didn't care. In the earlier stage of the game, the Tahm Kench is going to be one of the most valuable champions, and the Lee Sin's already powerful. The Akali feels great because it's a tank Akali type build, and that means that this 3v3 is feeling fantastic. How did they track Mordio is the better question here. It's like, I think somebody was able to get back behind. They didn't even know. He shot it well before there was vision. Yeah, he just took an assumption that he was going to start taking the Krugs, and that's exactly what happened. Aimed perfectly and caught Mordio with a rocket. Minui with a fantastic play right there of his own volition to find that kill. I also really like this. Strumpus didn't have to use the second part of the ultimates to execute because Lee Sin came in to clean up that kill, and that meant that he got to get out clean and hands without anything. Nothing crazy like that one. Wiped his hands clean to the situation. That means Wildcard. They walk out 3 kills. They get their dragon in their back pocket. Team's feeling great right now.
And they got kill participation going all ways, especially with that last bit. Minui able to get the Super Mega Death Rocket kill. Now here comes the flank coming in onto Ivano. Gets devoured in the process. I am sorry, but Alorum is here. The Toad is what you should fear. Now focusing down over towards the river in the bot lane. Kenji, Vex trying to set something up here, but a little bit too much in the way. A little bit too much distance. Mordio over the wall. He is spotted out by a ward. Not sure if he realizes that Griffin will put a Sonic Wave to follow him through as Alorum comes from the wings. Mordio, no choice but to back off. Just defensive play coming out of Winthrop.
Mordio also has to be excruciatingly careful with his positioning, because if Pakis ends up landing a Q onto him for like the Starfall, it gives the ability of the W to not cost health at all, and that means that Pakis just gets to pocket heal somebody for like 150, 200 health for free, probably twice before the cooldown ends up leaving. And against a melee champion, super easy to hit that ability, especially when you silence them and then they're stuck in place. You can hit with the second one. The way to chip away at it is just Pakis can't play offensively in a very aggressive positioning when his health is low, which is why in a situation like this is where like Kenji and Vex, they've done enough damage to push him out of lane. Now Minwi has too high of a health pool to really aggress against unless Kenji finds a nice W, but that's not going to be the case. So they're doing the right thing, right? They're shutting down the health pool of Soraka to prevent her aggressive positioning, but Mordio can get punished by that anytime he feels like in danger. If he jumps in on top of somebody, there's a problem.
Oh! The minions again! They are just so much on the side of Wildcard.
Oh.
Trying to find the snare was Kenji, but now Kenji might have been off more than to get you. Here comes the True Shot Barrage as well. It's the snare going to follow, flashes away, and breaks the tether in time. Minui able to stay alive and show that he can play on the back foot.
Yeah, Soraka also had to be burned right there. Gale Force Flash, everything from Minwi except for the exhaust burnt in that iteration. We even said, like we said outright, if a W is found by Kenji, they can find aggression into this Jinx now that the Soraka is gone. And that's exactly, they found two. First one was blocked by the minion, second one was not blocked. They burnt every defensive tool just about from the back pocket of Minwi, which forces him out of lane. It's not like super detrimental quite yet. This is a bit more of a problem now that Mordio's here though.
Here comes the teleport being channeled. Vex able to get some shots in
Incredible.
as the tower is juggled by Kenji. Now going over to Mordio. Backup has arrived. The silence is put down. There is the Abyssal Voyage as the ultimate's going to be used. Minui will be able to take down Mordio, not fearing the queen, but there is Rift Herald in the mid lane. All meanwhile, going to get another charge onto a tier 2 tower as Ivano has to back up.
You can't dive it. You can't dive the Soraka. You saw immediately, Mordio got completely dissuaded by that silencing field underneath, because if he goes and dives, and he tries to pop out of the ground, you might get a knock-up, but you're going to get stuck. You're going to die. You're going to trade, ultimately. And the flash was still available from Soraka, so you basically had to full engage into Minwi. The Q had already been hit, so the health pool was there. You could just drop everything. Heal and W from Soraka would have basically full healed that situation. Everything went out the window immediately for Winthrop as soon as that dive was called. Not to mention, Alorum came and played that perfectly as well. After the teleport, being able to cancel, pushing back the other two, all the meanwhile mid lane winning as well. Winthrop commanding pretty much every single lane. Their solo lanes are going well. Mordio has nothing inside of this game. And again, I'm still questioning whether or not Ivano and Vex are going to be able to put out damage enough to actually do anything to Wildcard's composition come the late game.
I have to commend Alorum so much in this game because his map presence has been beautiful,
Incredible.
has been pristine, has been immaculate. Showing up bot lane, getting the outplays in the top side, getting the ganks over in the mid lane. He finds these creative paths. No one sees it coming. And I think the gold speaks for it more than anything else. 2 kills in his pocket, has an assist as well, already completing 2 items with the Frozen Fist and the Spirit Visage.
It now occurs to me also that there will come a time in this game where there is a Tom Kench with a pocket Soraka to just heal him. You don't kill that. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You need Execution, or you need Grievous for that. Oh, that's a
good play right there. Able to get the damage in very, very quickly, but now here comes the response out of Wildcard as Strumpus is going to jump in with the Sakali. Ultimate's going to be burned by Mordio as he tries to get some vengeance, but Strumpus is just too good. Now Kenji on the run will get destroyed by Griffin. Strumpus still trying to get away from My Bud, and My Bud can't close the distance in time. Flash burst by Strumpus to stay alive. Oweni Minui goes down. Kenji and Mordio fall for Winthrop, however.
Punishment on the other side. It's Kenji that's caught off in the midst of everything, and Mordio, again, he's a melee champion playing into a bunch of champions that are able to catch him relatively quickly. Very nice W from Alorum. Maba just getting bullied. Oh no, please don't do it to him. No.
Griffin, not like this. Alorum's experienced. He's experienced, and it's showing.
That hurts so bad to watch because you knew exactly what was going to happen, but that didn't take away the horror of any of it. Alorum just walks on top of a Bud, gets the full stacks, eats him, and throws him at his own jungler. All after the play in the mid lane that looked okay because they found Minwi for the first time. They finally found some semblance of a fight, even getting the kill onto their Victor, which is necessary, but it just doesn't matter. Wildcard's got too many members. Like you said, Alorum has to be lauded very heavily for his impact over this game, his ability to do a lot. Actually, Strumpus is going to be a menace now. He's going to go after Ivano.
Yeah, Ivano's not getting away from this one. Strumpus maneuvers around the gravitational field. Strumpus picks his 2nd kill of the game so far.
splitting across the map, it feels like Winthrop has never found a moment where all of their members can come together in one cohesive bunch, which is where maybe they can find the best effects of this game. But outside of that, it's going to be really tough. And since really the beginning, they've kind of been split apart into 1, 2-member, tops 3-member pieces that just have not worked out in the slightest in their favor, because the members of Wildcard are just too strong when they're able to match that kind of numbering. So we're at a point in the game where Wildcard is ahead 7,000 gold, 6,500 gold, I think is more accurate to what's happening. But at this point, it just doesn't matter. The members of their team, not only are they doing a ridiculous amount of damage, but also Akali is doing Akali is tanky because it's a tank Akali that hasn't been nerfed quite yet on this patch. You've got the Tom Kench, which is going to be unkillable. And reminder, again, there's a Soraka in the back pocket for all of these champions. That health pool just doesn't go down in the right situation.
Lorem is such a menace. Mabud having to hop over the wall, takes the recall. Can't even get any split push presence into this one because Alorum is always threatening with that Abyssal Voyage. Now Griffin coming over towards the red buff side of Winthrop. Potentially looking to try and find something more here as the red buff is going to be handed over to Vex. Vex will be able to grab that, but the vision control is being pressed forward from Wildcard. You can see it over on the blue side jungle of Winthrop, those deep wards. You start to see it on the red side jungle. Control ward does wait there, and waiting will be Griffin in the process as he's trying to stalk out Vex. Sonic Wave in there. There's the vision denial, and you can't really do too much. Even if you do get that poke, even if you do get those pop shots, Bacchus is always there to heal that up right away.
So the Trinity Force build has been gone for here by Vex in an attempt, I assume, to really carry the team, right? If you go for Crown and you go for Essence Reaver combined with Monamine, you've got damage, but it's not game-ending damage, right? The Trinity Force with the scaling and the attack speed is supposed to be I am Ezreal, I will solo carry the game type territory, and that's where Vex feels like he is at this point to be able to do damage. I find it tough to believe he's going to be able to use the attack speed super effectively into the tanks that are in front of him, but I can applaud him at least for the thought process of being I need more damage. I cannot go for Crown for safety. This is not a game where if I am getting engaged on, I'm going to live because a Crown saved me. This is a game where if I get engaged on, I'm going to die.
It's a risky call in a game that is already high risk if you do anything whatsoever. It's you can't really fault them for the choice, as Winthrop, they're just shoved into their base at this point. Only Mabud is able to get some time by himself over with this tower. He will be able to take it down. I believe that's the final outer tower that Winthrop needed. One more remaining, I believe, in the mid lane as Vex jumps forward, tries to go into Minui. Mordio is going to follow suit, but there is that teleport Strumpess looking to join the battle, and no one wants to challenge him.
Nope. Even worse, also, Minui took maybe half of his health bar from the combo from Vex. A W and an auto attack at the last second probably would have dropped him to a quarter. Bacchus healed him entirely back up to full health in a single W. Lost 10% of his health, yes, because he didn't have the Q applied. Does not matter. You're going to take that all day on your ADC. Oh. Okay. I think he was planning to take the E, but then he's like, okay, I'm going into 3 members. I'm going to W out of it. I'm not going to follow that anymore. There was significant danger to be had right there. As another objective bounty is picked up by Winthrop, it was Ivano on the top lane being able to pull that tower, trying to shrink this gold lead. It's 5,500 still in the back pocket. Again, killing this team is going to be the hardest thing they have to do, so they're just trying to scrap as much gold as they can together to the best of their abilities just to be able to do damage to this team. They need penetration in spades on a number of different champions to be able to make this work. And that's also been tapered just because how many executioners, how many things that are applying grievous wounds have been bought by this team. I think 3 members already have those items just because they desperately need to prevent the Soraka from just full healing people, not to mention Alorum's healing, Griffin's innate healing. You have Minui build sustain if he happens to buy any. Strumpus who has some innate sustain. Just can't happen. There's too much. They haven't been able to buy that penetration to rip through those health bars yet.
I mean, trying to get some silver linings over Winthrop, they are at least stopping the bleeding. But situations like this might work for their benefit quite well. Strumpus tries to hop away. The heal is there, and there is Bacchus. There is the ultimate for Mordio, but he realizes there's too much HPS in the area. Super Mega Death Rocket goes wide. Mordio trying to escape, but Strumpus is now ready to take the fight to him. Chases him away, burns his flash, and that was an engage that Winthrop chose, and they just could not close out.
Yeah, so you remember how I said Rek'Sai can't kill anybody because if it's Soraka's there, she presses W, then presses E, then you can't do anything? It's exactly what just happened in that situation. And now Mordio, so low, he's off the fight. He's only just now coming back. They're going to take the Baron. Minimum, they have the smite advantage, so they're going to have to try to steal it in some way.
Ooh, very close there. Still gets picked up by Griffin. Now it looks like Wildcard might be looking for an engage. Alorum goes forward with the Abyssal Voyage. Asma Bud tries to run away. The Rocket's able to land onto 3 right there. Sonic Wave goes through. Jumping forward. Griffin is a beast. He finds Vex. And now the rest of Winthrop. Full retreat. Mordio fed to Minui. Here comes another Abyssal Voyage coming out of Alorum as he goes right after Abano. And Stropeth tears him in 2. Mabud in his base. Kenji taking the recall, but Wildcard. This game is all but done now as they march into the base of Winthrop.
I don't think they need to leave. I think with this Baron buff, I mean, they have 20 seconds on a number of people. Vex is down, Ivano's down. There's no wave clear here. And best case scenario, even if they get everybody back up, you can't drop these health bars. Soraka is here. She lands a Q. Everybody's back to full health pretty much instantly. They're just going to dive into the towers. This is going to be a Wildcard Gaming win.
Yeah, Mabud trying to get out. Loses a lot of health. Doesn't really do anything. The tower is not his friend right now because the tower is not alive. Respawn's coming in. Vex is able to show up, but look at the Nexus. It is all done. The deck is stacked, and Wildcard Gaming will take game number 1.
All too easy, man. A number of different things that caused that game to go completely awry. I wasn't in love with the Rek'Sai pick to start with, but it also just got completely bullied in the early game. That's a Soraka pick, man. It was disgusting how much it was able to accomplish against that Karmat. That's the kind of back pocket pick you are looking for to stack your deck for Pockets and the rest of Wildcard. And again, just the influence of the top side of the map, too. There was not a member on this team that was not popping off in this game. You can say everything about everyone. Alorum and Griffin both commanded their positions incredibly well. Alorum specifically was everywhere on this Tahm Kench, making as many people miserable as he possibly could. Wildcard, fleshed out composition, just command everything, looked great doing it. Amazing first game from them in a statement win.
Yeah, amazing first game to say the least. Everyone looks stellar. You've already said it. Everything from both pockets on his Soraka and the amount of denial he was able to do, kill denial on that. Minui with some of those long range, that super mega death rocket that hit Mordio, like that is so painful for Mordio in a game where he's already that far behind, trying to deal with the pressure that Griffin's amounting. In all fronts, this was a wild card game. That being said, though, we have to start questioning where Winthrop can find a way to come back, because we saw the last series that went on versus Golden Guardians Academy and No Team. No Team got stomped game 1. We're able to find a comeback. Maybe I'm just being hopeful because I'm a Winthrop fan. Maybe I just got to put on the winning team's colors at this point. Hey, I'm either way at this. They both are red, so I don't lose out. But intense game to come out in this game 1.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I think, really importantly, I think Mordio looked insanely uncomfortable in that game. The Rek'Sai pick was already one that was a little bit curious in the first place, but also just wasn't allowed to do anything in the beginning. And it wasn't fit when Mordio usually does, right? Like he's the Kha'Zix, sure, to be able to find the one-on-ones. When that's not there, I know Rek'Sai probably the next one in his pool, but then the Karthus is available, the Graves, like things like that, things like farming champions to be able to set him up to play into the later stages usually is what he's gone for comfort. So I'm hoping they can get Mordio some more comfort and try to deny some of the plays from Griffin, play more absorbative in the beginning portions of the game, and then play for the later stages where they've really found their success.
All right, it's that time again to throw it over to a short break, but first we need to give a shout out to our sponsors, and that sponsor is going to be Skulls. Looking to upgrade your gamer gear? Look no further. Start 2022 off right with official unified esports merchandise brought to you by Skulls. Hoodies, joggers, jerseys, armbands, and a lot more coming soon. You have the skill, now get the swag. Skulls.com/collections/unified has everything you need. Gear up and game on. We're going to throw it over to Izzy and the analyst desk to break down that game.
Be up for work. Welcome back to the desk. Wildcard Gaming is up 1-0 against Winthrop University. Hawk, are we feeling better about the predictions at the start of the series?
Yeah, you were feeling a little bit better than game 1 last time around, to say the least. I'm happy I stuck with Wildcard because, if I'm being honest, it was just a slow burn win. Wildcard, maybe the experience really was what they needed.
Yeah, for sure. And what is the name of the game here? With what is the story shaping up to be? Because Winthrop has been an underdog before and came out on top, but they're not looking super hot right now at the end of game 1.
Yeah, to me, it just kind of looks like Winthrop was playing a little bit scared. I don't know. They sort of went for some plays, but they didn't really go in super hard on it. And, you know, they've been a team that has counterpicked really aggressively on red side. They did it to beat Immortals AoE, for example, in group stage, which was a pretty big upset. And they did it a little bit here too with like the Rek'Sai and the Gwen, but they didn't really get anything going around it. So it was just a little bit awkward. And yeah, it was tough for them to really get anything going in Wildcard. Again, slow burn. They kind of just picked their moments and executed on it.
Yeah, so taking a look at this draft, obviously, like you said, they went for this aggressive red side counter pick. They went with the Rek'Sai, but obviously the thing that kind of sticks out to us the most from this early draft phase was the Soraka. And you know, we were like, oh, this is actually a really good pick because, you know, unlike the Caitlyn Lux lane, right, where it kind of wants to push, it wants to get ahead. Karma Ezreal can kind of outduel that in a straight up 2v2, unless like Lux lane's abilities. The Jinx Soraka lane is kind of different because Soraka's kind of allowed to just non-interact herself to victory, right? And it really helps here. And basically, the more the game slows down, we were talking about this before, the more it favors Wildcard. And that is exactly what happened at the beginning of this game, right? You know, we talked a bit about, moving into the first replay here. We talked a lot about how... at least I talked a lot about how my player to watch here was, was Mabud here going up against Alorum. And you kind of see we're like, okay, Mabud likes to play carry top laners, right? There's a lot of, young amateur top laners. They try to play, carry top laners into Alorum. And sometimes it works and sometimes it does not work. This was a game where it unfortunately did not work. Mabud was not able to build an advantage on that Gwen. Obviously, it's Tom Kench. He walks around, stat checking people, and that's like the thing he does, right? But they were not able to gain much of an advantage top lane. And, as Hawk and I were talking about during the thing, a lot of during the game, a lot of that is because of how Winthrop played out that early game.
Yeah, and Hawk, take us into the mid game. How did Winthrop continue to fall behind? Where did Wildcard find their leads, and what needs to adjust going into game 2?
Yeah, it was just sort of like, again, Winthrop seemed like they weren't exactly sure what they wanted to do to win this game. And I'm actually going to start on the very first clear of the game in the early game where we do see, well, in the mid lane fight as well. Like, I think this sums up very well sort of how the game went for Winthrop, where they finally find a proactive angle onto Minwi, right? And get a big shutdown. It's great. But then Stromp teleporting in. Really nice knockup, but it's just not enough. There's nothing left in the tank here for Winthrop. It's 1-2 kills on the backside here for the side of Wildcard. And so despite their 80 carry going down, it's a great counter punch. And it speaks to how Winthrop at that point was already like 5,000 gold behind. And it comes down to, I think, some questionable choices in the early game, namely looking at Mordio on this Rek'Sai 3-camping up towards top side and then trying to contest for bottom scuttle. I'm not sure if the play call was to attack the Soraka, to protect the Karma Ezreal, or what. But I mean, if I'm Winthrop this game, I'm looking at this Rek'Sai counterpick into Lee Sin, this Gwen counterpick into the Tom Kench, and I'm wanting to attack top lane. I'm wanting to get my top laner ahead, and this is something that we've seen Winthrop do in their other games this tournament. So I'm actually surprised this was a strategy they didn't go for, and I'm disappointed that they tried to play more towards the bottom side because it did not work. They weren't able to attack the Soraka down there on the bottom side, and Griffin, credit to him as well, pathing really nicely to protect the bottom lane, which, as Manny mentioned, was sort of just a non-interaction lane for both sides. Karma Ezreal is never going to kill Soraka Jinx, and vice versa. There's just not a play to be had. And Wildcard did, I think, a better job juggling the pressure, and then they were able to then transition some of the leads that they had in farm, Alorum in the isolated lane finding a solo kill, then into the mid game where we saw fights like that, where Winthrop, they finally find a shot, but they're just too far behind to make anything happen from it.
Yeah, and we did talk about it, obviously, a little bit earlier. It just, we liked what Winthrop did in terms of draft of like, okay, they're going to try these really aggressive red side counter picks, right? And they pick up their Rek'Sai. The problem was they kind of played a little bit too passively, right? They just decided, hey, we're going to play a normal game. And unfortunately, Griffin also played a normal game, and that benefits the Lee Sin a lot more. If you're going to play this Rek'Sai, you got to play like a psychopath. You got to out-psychopath the Lee Sin. And unfortunately, Winthrop did not do that this game.
No.
Yep. Well, let's check in on those players that we kind of, kept our eyes on for at the start of the show. Hawk, I know you said you were keeping an eye on Pacus. How did he do in the first game?
Yeah, honestly, I'm very surprised and impressed by Pacus this game. Soraka was not something that any of us had on our radar coming into the series at all, and it was a first half of draft Soraka. I think it was second picked on blue side there, so not really something that I was looking at all. And Pacus pulls it out. A player that was known for playing more roaming-based champions last season. It was the Leonas and the Nautiluses and the Rakans that were coming out in particular. So something that we hadn't seen for Pacus, something that we haven't been seeing this season at all from anybody. And he played really well on it. There was a great silence on the bot lane dive in the mid game that saved Minwi. Really nice play across the board. And now that's something that Winthrop has to account for in draft as well. It seemed like they didn't really have an answer for it this time around. So do you ban it? Do you pick something into it? What happens? Because I feel like this was out of left field, and all credit to Pacus for playing it really nicely.
Yeah, and Manny, checking in on Mabud in the top lane. I know we talked about Winthrop playing a little further behind than we'd like to see, but what were your thoughts?
Well, like I mentioned earlier when I was going over the solo kill top lane, I mean, it was it was kind of a standard Alorum game where he Mabud got up 15 CS early game.
The gate was kept.
That he just didn't, he didn't contest the CS. Alorum equalizes the CS. They farm for 5 minutes. Alorum gets a random solo kill where he stat checks someone. They win a 2v2 top lane. And then, the other top laner, in this case, Mabud is 0-2. And Alorum just runs around being Tom Kench, right? And, they just weren't able to force those aggressive 2v2 top fights early on that could have given him the ability to gain some sort of early lead or some sort of advantage in the top lane. So instead, Alorum was kind of able to just kind of outscale him during the mid game at least, and it just made it very hard for him to play.
Now, I know we thought that the Golden Guardians no team series was going to be relatively one-sided, and it didn't end up being. Just closing out really quick before we send back to the casters for game 2, do you think Wildcard has what it takes to, make this a one-sided series going 2-0, or do we think that Winthrop is going to pull out a comeback of sorts?
Well, you owe me, Hawk. Remember when no team went down 1-0 last series, I told you they still have a chance. So you owe me at least that in return.
I will always believe that any team has a chance. What I will say, though, is I think there's a difference between, in game 1 of the Golden Guardians No Team series, right? No team kind of just got bodied. That happens to even the best teams, and they bounced back. Whereas this game was a little bit more concerning to me for Winthrop because it just seemed like they didn't really have a direction in what they wanted to do, and I think the issues looked a little bit deeper than just our mid laner got smashed, which wasn't even the case this game, right? It was just sort of across the board, we fell apart. So I will say, I think Winthrop definitely has a chance, right? Those issues are fixable. If you're going to pick the Rek'Sai again, Mordio, I want to see you be aggressive. I want to see this trademark topside action come out from this team, but we did not see that this game. So I don't know, maybe the nerves need to be shaken off or what, but you've got one more game. Winthrop, I think they have a chance, but I'm feeling pretty confident that Wildcard can take game 2.
Well, we will have to see because their chance is now. We're going to pass it over to the casters and get into game 2.
Said they have a chance? Man, get Hawk off the desk. Manny and me know the truth and we see it coming. Winthrop is coming back. And speaking of coming back, welcome back to the Casting Desk. And this series, our coverage of Winthrop University versus Wildcard Gaming. And, okay, maybe I can see why he might be thinking that after that dominating game number 1 that we saw from Wildcard.
it's at least reasonable to a fair extent, right? You don't call them Winthrop for without reason, right? They are called Luthrop. They are called Winthrop because they always like to come back. They always like to make things good. But in this situation, Wildcard had way too clean of a game, number one, to discount the possibility of a 2-0 and a clean sweep here from this team, because they were firing on every single cylinder that we've seen, probably better than we've seen in any performance over the entirety of the split.
I completely agree with that. I mean, you can't really pick out a standout member other than Alorum, of course, but everyone else was firing on all cylinders. When it came to that one, you know, even Minui, we talked about his cross-map plays with the Super Mega Death Rocket, his positioning, able to stay really well placed on the Jink. Paucus, the Soraka, that was just so incredibly dirty, alongside Alorum. There are so many questions that Winthrop need to answer with this next draft.
They do. It's a question of like, first off, does Soraka come back, right? Because that's already going to be a menace to you if you decide to go for the Karma once again and you blind pick that into something. But also, again, the jungle pool position, it's a question of, is there more to the pool of Mordio than things like the Karthus, like the Kha'Zix, like the Graves? Because obviously trying out the Rek'Sai ended up not working out too heavily. Do you have the blanket stuff? Do you have things like the Jarvan? Do you have things like the Lee Sin? Do you have a more creative pick to come out here with? Are we going to get a Sejuani finally or anything like that? Again, not to say that Sejuani is necessarily a jungler that you want to play right now. More so just that I want to see something in the pool from Mordio that is not Rek'Sai, because that game was obviously indicative of the fact that it wasn't necessarily the most comfortable and it wasn't played with a team. Rek'Sai is not a Winthrop champion, right? Winthrop is a late game team. That's not a champion that you're going to want unless, like, I think Manny put it best, unless you play like a psychopath and you gank like every 10 seconds for your two massive scaling lanes, you're not going to find too much avail with that champion.
Mordio does like playing like a psychopath, though. To also put it there, it's not really there's not really too much left in the wheelhouse of Mordio. I feel like he does have at least a little bit more of a shallow champion pool. He has been willing to pull out some of the spicier picks. One of the ones I see on his match history, and when I say match history, I mean competitive match history. We're talking Nerd Street Winter Champs 2022. He's pulled out stuff like the Master Yi in the past before when put in tight situations. So you never know what he's really going to bring.
If we get a Master Yi with Enchanters in the bottom side, like this, we're going back to like, what is it, 2018 in the midseason when we saw like ADCs just take a complete departure from the game and we were getting that mid lane. Like, what an exciting time we would possibly live in to have something like that come about. I would hope that Mordio would be willing to give us something spicy, so they go out without with a yell instead of a whisper, which would be nice, instead of Winthrop just falling 2-0 with nothing to say. At least they're trying something, throwing out the wall to see it its fixed, and they get red side once again. So that's quite nice as well.
So red side pick, Wildcard. They're not going to let that one slide through as they ban away the Kha'Zix once again. Again, this is a champion that Mordio is very, very prominent at. He's very proficient. He's been playing a lot throughout this year. Another prominent champion banned away was the Rise. We were talking about it earlier, Dean. It is a bread and butter champion. We're using that term way too much today. Force Rumpus.
Told you. The Zoe as well also is a comfort pick for Ivano. And Ivano showed some incredible play on that during the qualification match up against Dare, which I think was another really big aspect to this. So the fact that this is incredible target banning coming out from Wildcard, making sure to take two of the most comfortable champions for the squad off the board. I like that Winthrop is adapted as well. No more Tahm Kench for Alorum. You're not going to be able to make their lives any more miserable than it already was inside of that top lane matchup. And now it's a question of, what does Wildcard go to? What does Winthrop respond with? Karma is still available. You have Jinx still available after what happened in the previous game. You have some mid laners like Victor that are still available. Zhao is still up. Lee Sin is still available. There's a number of different champions that you can easily go to on either side.
I'm going to be watching this marksman pick right now because Vex normally has been more of a Jhin Ezreal player, at least more recently. He's only started jumping on the Caitlyn bandwagon, and as that has been pushed more priority, he's shown that he's no real slouch at it. As one of the big reasons why Wildcard just goes straight for that Caitlyn band, don't want him on it, pushing him back towards his older champions, as he is going to be on the Ezreal once again.
It's a champion that pops up in a number of situations, and it's super safe. The problem is, I feel like if you're going to make this work, you either need to play it incredibly aggressively, and by incredibly aggressively, I mean, like, you basically need to snowball the heck out of bottom side with this Ezreal, or you need to attack the rest of the map. Last game, Winthrop really did neither. which was a little bit of a pain. I know our desk talked a lot about attacking to the top side, tapping Kamabud, and making sure he was going to go ahead. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Same with Ivano. If you're able to get Ivano in a good situation, Strumpus had a couple of moments where he went pretty wild inside of the laning phase, and if you could taper those situations from Wildcard, all of a sudden it becomes a challenge of Minwi versus Vex, where Vex is going to be able to keep up in terms of farm and incredibly safe in the laning phase, which I think is important for this team to at least consider. They go to the Kai'Sa this early in this. No Jinx this time. They are going to go back to the Kali, which I think was amazing for Strumpus, but the Kai'Sa actually evokes some interest in my mind.
So Kai'Sa, you can definitely dive deep. It was gonna happen, Dean. We both knew it. We both knew it. You can't stop this man from playing the Urgot.
Inevitable, man. You can't stop it. It is simply inevitable to see him play the Urgot. I feel like every time I cast like Alorum, he always pulls the Urgot out for me. It's just something that always tends to happen. And he's really, really good at the champion as well. And this is another thing that will make the top lane matchup miserable for Mabba unless he's got something in the back pocket to be able to make work. I'm hoping there is something. This is of interest. I have my reservations about this matchup between these two, mostly because Gnar is strong, has some good engage possibilities, but I feel like the laning against the Urgot is not particularly favorable. You do have the Boomerang and you have like the Hyper Stacks that can do some pretty menacing things to the Urgot in the wrong situation, but the way that I've seen this play out from Alorum is that if Mini-Gnar is within killing range, he kills the Mini-Gnar, which is just a possibility on just a single flip. So you have to be very careful. Mabud, tread a little bit lightly in terms of that one-on-one.
I will say, I do like that Mordio was able to get the Graves this time, much more than the Rek'Sai. We talked about his jungling style being more about the power farming into power pressure. Graves definitely plays into that style.
That he does. It does mean that there's a bit more opening for Griffin to get aggressive in the earlier stages. So they're kind of challenging for Griffin to say, okay, what are you going to do? Because Graves should be able to cover for lanes a little bit better, a little bit faster than what the Rek'Sai did. There's no like necessity of getting ahead in the early game from the Graves as well, the way that Rek'Sai did. It's a bad challenge. I think Griffin's really good at jungling, and he's very good at being aggressive and commanding a lot of attention in the earlier stages of the game. But it is at least a challenge that is issued here from Winthrop. Because again, this is a team that plays very defensively. They play for later game. I say that a couple of times. But again, this is a team that absorbs pressure very effectively, or they've shown to absorb pressure very effectively. And so they're going to do exactly that here, where they're saying, okay, you can draft yourself winning lanes, you can draft yourself lanes you feel pride in. You got to make sure that Griffin's going to make an attempt, because we're not going to make things easy on you, and if you let us scale, then things are going to be problematic.
So Lulu getting locked in over on Winthrop's side. Battle of Enchanter supports is going to be the case here. Pawkus, this is weird for me because I haven't seen him on those enchanters in at least quite some time, so it is a bit of a change-up coming from Wildcard.
It has been literally years since like supports have been playing enchanters, right? The closest we got is like Rakan, and every once in a while like Lulu pops up, but it's been so long since, or Yumi also pops up every once in a while, just so randomly as an attachment champion. But like we almost forget what some of these players were doing before like Nautilus literally just commanded the entire meta for like the better part of 3 years for whatever reason. And it's that like Bacchus is showing a little bit of the flexibility in the pool, taking the Nami alongside the Kai'Sa, able to apply those E stacks actually really effectively with like the Q and the spells that come out, because that now applies to spells. So it's an interesting adaptation, helps with the pushing. You can use the Q to help get over top of the Ezreal. This is really good from Ivana. We've seen this pop off as well. This is sort of akin again to the Zoe, where it's like, okay, you can threaten backliners, you can threaten onto backline with like the dive potential that the champion brings. And if you put resources into it, you're actually getting out quite a bit as well, because this champion can just one-shot members of the opposing team.
Yeah, and it's a champion he can perform with as well.
Oh, yes.
One of his best performances has been on the Vex. Another one that comes to mind was when he played the Echo against Dare last week. So, no shy play to come out of Ivano in this next upcoming game that we do see fit. Taking a look at the total scheme of things, I did notice that Strumpus locked in Orianna. We've said like every champion is pretty much in this man's wheelhouse. He plays a lot when it comes to the mid lane. It kind of throws me back to the last time he played it. I believe it was against Base State, and it was absolute domination. It was the same series he played Veigar and dominated with. So it's definitely a scary champ in Strumpus' hands.
Yeah, he played a couple of Azir games against them, and then he also played, of course, the Orianna, which was good, and then the Vigar, like you said, and the Orianna was very good. It pairs well with this composition just because you've got a ton of consistent damage. You've got Xin Zhao, you've got Kai'Sa, you've got Urgot. You have ways to execute this team, right? What you really just needed was something to compound everything together. I don't think Azir would have been impossible to play in this situation. I don't think that, like, Galio would have been impossible to play in this situation, but given that you have Xin Zhao for engage and you have a bunch of ability to zone control with Orianna, I think this is the best way to prevent levels from really getting punished, because when you have Gnar on the other side, when you have Vex on the other side, you have ways to dive on top of Kai'Sa, on top of Nami, on top of Orianna if the time comes. So if you can punish that positioning by throwing the ball in between where like the Ezreal's going to stand, the Graves is going to stand, and where those champions are going to end up, you can prevent a full 5-on-5 from developing into your team, or you at least deny that timer for a short amount of time. So that's Strumpus, again, flexing a little bit of the team fighting prowess. He's self-proclaimed the best one of the tournament. Pretty sure he earned that title also at Scouting Grounds. The most recent year was like most best team fighter, something along those lines. And this is a champion that he really can kind of flex those muscles.
And then when you look into team fight presence of how this is going to play out, you don't really have too much of a front line over on the side of Winthrop. They have opted to go with the Gnar. You do need that to go into the Mega form. And one of the issues you have about that is it's not only Mabud going into a Lorem's Urgot of all champions. It is a timer. It is something you can visibly watch out for and kind of anticipate plays around that Gnar bar.
Yeah, it's a situation where you have to either get really creative with how the Gnar bar is used, or you have to find like flash plays, really good flanks, things like that.
And the teleport changes aren't really helping that as well.
That definitely don't help in the early game at minimum. They help they're fine in the later stages, but the early game you can't use the Gnar to just 5-man ult on the bottom side the way that you used to be able to do it in some situations. You also have the really legitimate threat that even in Mega Gnar, if you're not built super tanky, there's a good amount of burst damage, right? Like you got shotgun knees, you got like the plasma stacks from the Kai'Sa, and you got like the shockwave coming out, and if all of that hits you at once, you actually might just blow up whether you're in Mega Norm or not. So I feel like it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world for Mabud to really find an amazing ultimate unless he is very tricky or they have good vision control, something like that. I almost feel like Ivano needs to be the first one in, then the Gnar needs to come in so that they have something to react to first, and then once like the Q and like the ability to reposition the ball is different, once the Kai'Sa doesn't have the ability to throw an ability and just like stack the plasma immediately, that's when the Gnar can start to strike. And so Ivano, I expect a very early Zonias, and I kind of want to see them first into the fight first, before the Gnar actually goes in.
All right, so we're ready to head into game. Wildcard now at match point. One more win to head forward into the bracket. Winthrop, so close to me. They just got to bring it back. They got to bring it back, man. We've seen the Cinderella stories before. We've seen what they were able to do with Immortal AoE, but this is competition here. Proving Grounds qualifiers.
It's an exciting position to be in because this is our second one of the day where we have a team that's like on the precipice of being knocked out. We had that last week as well where like we were casting some of that, but this is for playoffs. And I want to remind everybody that it's top 6 teams in terms of points after the 2 qualifiers that automatically qualify for the tournament for Scouting Grounds, or for Proving Grounds. My apologies, not for Scouting Grounds, for Proving Grounds. Top 6 teams get to go. And so this is a really big difference, right? Placing 4th through 8th is a lot different than placing top 4, because a top 4 placement might get you enough points to not have to worry nearly as much about placing in top 6. Maybe you could get to playoffs and then immediately you could stop, right? Like you don't have to worry about placing top 6 because you might be guaranteed at that point. But if you drop to 4 through 8, right, there is the potential that there are teams, too many teams, that are capable of beating you in the next tournament, especially if teams pop up with players from rosters that end up getting disintegrated or whatever might happen. Everything goes crazy in between tournaments, contracts, and things go crazy. So we have no idea what the ramifications are. It's unlikely that a bunch of teams end up turning about too much, but again, a situation like this for Winthrop where they were in danger of not qualifying for even playoffs, to get 4th through 8th and then to have that pressure coming into the next one is something to consider in a game like this. And I hope that Winthrop isn't affected by it too heavily, because it is a lot to put onto your shoulders to think if we had lost one more game in the open qualifier, we wouldn't even be here. And if that same position happens in the next tournament and we place 4 through 8, we might be 7th through 10th, or we might not even have enough points, right? That's a miserable place to be if you're a team like this.
Keep in mind the structure of the way this runs, because this is pretty much just a regular season of League of Legends like any other tournament out there.
Mhm.
The LCS Proving Grounds, we have a Circuit Qualifiers 1, Circuit Qualifiers 2 before we actually get to the Proving Grounds. So you do have multiple chances to be able to display your stuff to show how strong you are to get those placement points to get there. Winthrop trying that very hard right now as they face off against Wildcard Gaming, having spectacular plays so far, getting into the early stages of this game. We do have a blue buff start coming out from Griffin. It's going to be a red buff start coming out of Mordio, so both these junglers are going to meet towards the bottom side.
They will. We'll see what kind of interactions generate here. But again, when you've got the Kai'Sa and you've got the Nami in the early game, the wave clear advantage should be pretty decently in your favor just because of the Kai'Sa's ability to drop Q onto the wave, takes off a bit more health. Of course, Vex has more consistent Qs, so like in the early game, it may not make as much of a difference, but you can see that that's the case right here with the Kai'Sa and the Nami being able to bully a little bit, and they're combining their power now to go infringe upon the health of Mordio in the jungle. Might be a smite battle for the blue buff. He goes directly onto him, trying to find him right there.
Ooh, a flash over the wall, and it's going to result in first blood. Griffin will grab it, will grab the buff, but Vex is trying to grab his life. There's a body block there coming out of Minui and Pakus as they bully Kenji and Vex away from their jungler, getting that first blood, getting that buff, and getting out.
I cannot possibly state how close that Vex was right there. I almost wish he would have flashed over the wall to kill Griffin and then try to take that 2v2 situation that they were in. This is miserable for Mordio. Again, this was just bullying. The bottom side had priority. Griffin gets to walk in. I think he thought what I thought, where it's like, okay, this is going to be a smite fight. There's no one here to support him right behind him, but instead got boxed into the wall, and that was all that was necessary for him to go down. And it was so close. Again, Vex with that E was just a little bit off. I don't even know if he had the rune that he's got up in place to be able to actually get the 10% bonus damage, the 10% true damage on top of the E, because that might have also made enough of a difference to really kill Griffin, because it was so close right there.
And Mordio's been such a high-impact player for Winthrop. It shows you that Wildcard have done their homework, as they keep doing these strategies that are fully set on denying him as much as possible, not letting him get that tempo, not letting him get that momentum, and just making him a non-factor in these games.
All about it's Griffin too. There's a lot of junglers that wouldn't necessarily take this onus upon themselves, but Griffin, with the experience and with the veterancy that he has, I think he's perfectly comfortable knowing that he can go play like a maniac in the opposing jungle against somebody like Mordio, who does tend to farm a little bit more in the earlier stages of the game. And I think that's something they played to. Like you said, that's preparation. That's really good preparation that they've thrown into themselves, because they also feel comfortable. I wanted to talk about this. Their laners are just great at laning, right? Like Strumpist is a good laner. Alorm is probably the best pure top laner that we have inside of this tournament. There's a couple in competition for it, right? You consider those two alone. I mean, Mabud and Ivano are at high threat at all points during these laning phases, when they've already had some shakier looking laning phases, especially earlier in the tournament. And so commanding the jungle matchup and allowing those two to just kind of do what they want, like they did in game number 1, turns into pretty positive results for Wildcard Gaming.
You can see Winthrop are kind of cautious as they try and find a spot where they can pull the trigger. Ivano doing a little bit of roam towards the bot side, but wasn't able to find too much. His wave is going to crash into the tower, and he's going to miss out a little bit on that. That CS is starting to add up now, as there's 11 CS difference between Strumpus and Ivano.
It stinks to start off this game to be at that kind of a deficit. Ooh. Vex going to take quite a bit. He's actually 1 auto off the plasma stack, which would have turned that into just a horrid trade right there. Both supports in the face of one another right now. Both junglers here too. We're in for a nice little party on the bottom side.
Little slugfest going off as Mordio looks to challenge Griffin. Gets a couple shots in. Griffin falling lower. The healing is there. It's a good chunk back. This bubble comes out. Almost called it the Sleepy Trouble bubble, so used to seeing that skill. But it will be enough to stop that game.
That will. It's a little bit more of a siesta instead of a fiesta, which is unfortunate because I was hoping for a little bit more action. But Mordio's not done because he's full health. He's a Graves. He is willing to step up. Oh, they caught him in the bush.
Wow, able to spot him out, but Mordio, he's not done. He gets it. And is he going to be able to back out off of this? He does have Kenji there. There's the shield. It buys him some time. It buys him some damage. It buys him everything he needed to finish off that invade. Mordio, man, he's willing to flip a coin, and he's willing to try it at any chance he gets to get a lead.
The Ignite on Mordio, the combination of that champion, especially because Kenji was able to come support him. I'm so confused why Pakus decided to challenge right there, because he's challenging into basically no vision, attempting to get something back for Griffin so you can take that duel. goal, but Mordio just wins out. The Graves is too much damage in these tight corridors at the beginning of the game, and that means that Mordio gets to recover from that initial kill, and you get one onto your Lulu. Kind of helpful for the laning phase on bottom side. Winthrop jump out to 1,000 gold lead. That's Mordio getting back into the game. That's amazing, because again, shutting him out has been the game plan from Winthrop so far, and that's just a little bit back into his pocket. That takes away from some of the aggressive game planning they might have had.
I mean, Graves needs that income. Falling behind early sucked, but now he's got that income reverted right back to him, going 1-1-1 now, getting that kill and assist off of that last exchange. So good return coming out for Winthrop. Wildcard kind of slipping up there. And the wild part about that was they did have knowledge that Mordio was in there. They did catch him out with that scrying orb. It did feel like a little bit of arrogance coming out of Pacus going that close to Mordio.
Or it was just they had thought perhaps that Mordio was lower than he was, or maybe they just thought that like he wasn't willing to play aggressively into two members, right? Pacus was sitting at like 60% health, something like that, maybe 50% health.
When you're that far deep, it's already pretty aggressive.
It is, and they should have understood the threat of it, right? Like a coiled stick is the one you don't want to like poke with a stick, right? Like you just don't want that kind of thing to come about. So that was a situation where I think it was perhaps just them going, okay, there's probably not going to be a full turn, and then when he did it, they were like, oh wait, rats, that's what's going to happen to us. This has led to a few things, but the most interesting one actually is the 25 CS that's currently surmounted by Vex on the bottom side with his Ezreal into the Kai'Sa. They knew the Ezreal was on the other side. This was the pick from Wildcard. This was the pick from Minwi, and it's down pretty bad right now. So this is at least something to track over the course of the game, whether the Kai'Sa can recover from this kind of deficit early.
Deep behind enemy lines is going to be Mordio, stealing the red buff underneath Griffin's nose. Griffin spotted out by Ward. Mordio not even going to challenge Griffin in this one. Just scoping out where he is, watching the pathing, and playing to that. Gets the red buff, now he's going to get the dragon.
Yeah, the jungle matchup has actually been quite influential in this game, and I suspect this is going to continue. Both supports also, right there, the Lulu was able to step out of the laning phase to be there for Mordio if the time came, and I'm assuming that's why Griffin played defensively instead of walking up blind into the red buff, because he didn't want to get caught out by the combination of the Graves and the Lulu, because that would have been a death sentence. So instead of doing so, just kind of stayed back, even though he was on vision, they knew he was there. It didn't matter, they wanted the red buff, they wanted the dragon, they ended up walking away with both, and now Mordio, once again, into the backside of this, just bullying Griffin on this Graves pick. Oh my god,
how does it
gotta keep going!
He keeps going in. He's going to do the collateral damage, shoots it at Pacus. He's not really going to take anyone out there, just doing it for damage. Mordio's angry, man. Mordio's pissed off about what happened in game one.
That was a Chad ultimate right there. He's just like, I'm dumping this into you. You're going to lose your health, and there's nothing you can do about it. Say goodbye to 150 health, buddy. Here comes the dive afterwards, which is probably the full reason that he used it in the first place. Poking underneath the tower, they get quite a bit.
Oh, Tidal Wave is sidestepped beautifully. Pacus goes down. And now Minui in a terrible spot gets knocked up by Kenji, but Kenji will not follow through, realizing that Griffin is coming off of that respawn. So able to get the kill, get some damage onto the tower. Mordio, absolutely aggressive, ruthless in this game too.
Perhaps the one deficit to this situation is that Kenji has picked up the last two kills instead of Vex or Mordio, but I don't think it matters that much because they picked up 3 plates of gold from the bottom side. They've shut out a ridiculous amount of farm from the pockets of Minwi. It's been Winthrop who have had the game plan. Attack towards the bottom side, have the jungle matchup go in your favor, and it's looking good. Mabut's not getting solo killed in the earlier stages, thankfully. The Urgot not able to accomplish that into the Gnar. Probably a bit of something because it's been pretty quiet up on the top side. Mid lane's going pretty well. Ivano's relatively even in farm. Looking a lot better for Winthrop here in game 2, commanding this 2,500 gold lead.
Yeah, Hawk, you hear that? Looking a lot better for Winthrop this game number 2. They do have a chance, and they are fighting back thus far. Now the duo roam coming in. Mordio, Kenji, roaming over towards the mid lane, just getting some vision for the time being. Pushed very deep underneath the tower is going to be Alorum. Griffin now hovering towards the side as the shockwave is going to go out, pushing Ivano back in. Ivano's going to pop the ultimate and instantly try and find a retry here. True shot, barrage! So many good ones today, baby! And now Mordio continues the fight, will get the buckshot into the back of Griffin, and Winthrop, a 2-for-1 exchange in their favor.
Yo, what in the world? Game 1, the true shot barrages were not the most inspired ones that I've ever seen in my entire life. You attack like a person or two. That would hit all 3 members in the mid lane. That was insane. He was able to get the execution of the Orianna combined with everything else, and now Alorum also getting bulked off by the Lulu. Kenji, you gotta be careful right there. This started by Strumpus, who like he just destroyed Ivano in the pure one-on-one right up until this moment, where the ultimate tags, he gets the W, the personal space gets in the shield, and Strumpus is even in health. And yes, you are able to get the kill, but again, look at this. All three of them lose their health bar, and if it weren't for that, maybe Griffin wins the one-on-one even with the support of the Lulu around, because of course the Nami is still there, but that 200 health difference, 300 health difference that Vex just supplied, that was more than enough for Mordio to just walk out of that in an extremely winning situation. What an ult from Vex, but what play from Wildcard, continuing to win out in a lot of these situations.
Way to show up Stixay's ultimate from earlier, the True Shot Barrage on the Blaze. Was pretty intense, and so is this Barrage coming out of Vex. He's able to flash backwards to get out of that one, but now Kenji is there. The autos are there. Able to get some heals in, but Kenji, you gotta fear the Lulu, man. This Yordle is deadly, but the bubble by this more True Shot Barrage comes out again. Kenji biting off more than you can chew. You gotta dodge the bubble if you're gonna find that kill.
I can appreciate Kenji going in like a maniac right there.
He had Ignite.
Yeah,
so close to coming off cooldown.
It was so close. Yeah, it was a very, very close situation. Almost got the pure execute onto Minwi even without it also. So there was that on the back end of it. I think thinking that Vex was going to be able to kind of blanket it, where, you know, assumably that the Kai'Sa was going to move back towards the tower, try to run in that direction if she survived. Maybe Vex just, you know, misclicking on that. Perhaps the first situation in which things didn't go great, because Alorum finds a roam as well. But that's bottom tower taken. All that gold into the pocket of Vex as well means he's going to spike onto his second item incredibly fast. You can see the gold already really heavily into the pockets of both Mordio and Vex, which is massive for what this team needs to do.
Dude, that is a deadly combo they were attempting right there. I don't know if you caught that. It's a shockwave into the Fear Beyond Death. Just trying to catch out Ivano and make his life hell. He's already suffered one death so far. It did force his flash in the process, as you just said. And the attention of Winthrop is going over towards the mid lane. Griffin starting to posture up around here, just clearing out his jungle for now as Paucus waits in the wings, looking to provide some support.
Nothing too crazy yet. You notice that the Hull Breaker is also purchased from Alorum, as he wants a little bit more laning control up against the Gnar, kind of keep him in place where he needs to be without kind of anything else. But so far, the map has actually been in pretty decent control from Winthrop. They got the first dragon. The Rift Herald went into their favor. The next Rift Herald is going to be available in just a little bit of time here, as well as the next dragon that's already live. They're going to look to find Strumpus.
There's that front-loaded damage that you get out of Mordio. Tidal Wave comes out. Strumpus barely able to get away. But now look at my bud. He's shown up to play, and the Mega Bar ultimate is almost ready. Waiting to pop it.
No flash.
He does go into Mega Gnar form now. Paucus waiting on the opposite side of the river. Can't do much else. They don't want to engage onto my bud in that Mega Gnar form. It is going to expire, though, and returning back to the standard state of things, starting off Dragon is going to be Winthrop.
Yeah, they were able to get Mabud out of a bad situation in the river back to their own lane. Yes, it cost the flash, but the Mega Gnar was enough to dissuade any kind of continued play from Wildcard, and without Rift Herald on top side, they just walk away with a free dragon on the side of Winthrop. That was a fight that felt like it was potentially winnable from Wildcard, right? They burnt the summoners from the Orianna, but it felt like things might have been comfortable enough for a solid shockwave alongside like an ultimate from Griffin to really land, but unfortunately couldn't get that all together. So instead they go back to their lanes, they get a few more tower plates here for Alorum. To be able to get out. There's support here from Kenji.
A nice bubble coming out from Paucus.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Beyond Death. He gets him before Alorum expires. He's still taking away though. Almost takes out Alorum. Alorum's getting out alive. He's taking my bud with him.
Oh, I thought Kenji was going to be able to get it with the last auto attack. Then I thought the last tick of Ignite was going to get it. It was not the defense from Paucus. I don't think it was the error. I think it was the shield from Strumpus from mid lane, because it tags you with the shield before the ball actually arrives, and he grabbed it at the last possible second. Unbelievable to keep him out of that right there. The attempted play from Mabud almost gets the kill. Now Mordio wants revenge for his top laner.
It's a questionable move from Strumpus right there. You definitely don't disrespect Mordio. Graves has a lot of front-loaded damage, especially being alongside a Lulu in that situation. I guess he thought he'd just clear the wave and back off. Try and feign some threat behind him.
Part of it, I think, was also the Gale Force right there. Oh, actually, Vex. Goodness gracious. Minwi, they canceled his back pretty much immediately as it started, so it didn't matter that much, but the damage is going to drive him out of lane. I think importantly at that right there is just that, again, the Gale Force isn't necessarily expected, so if he didn't pay attention to the item, he wouldn't have realized that the E-Gale Force combination of flash and damage from that, an auto attack and a Q was going to come out, and that meant that Strumpus was basically at 20% health immediately. Minui stuck
just needs
around.
one more pop. Just needs one more pop. Mystic shot finds its mark. Minui goes down. Kill number 2 for Vex, who's been on fire this game so far. We did see him pick up a lot of those plates in the bot lane. Now it's 2 kills to his name. There's a lot of gold to his name.
Man, this is it's Vex who's just on his like very powerful champion, and he's showing off a lot more in this game than he was able to in game number 1. Normally, he's like the pinnacle of I'm gonna sit in bot lane and I'm gonna farm the entire time, and that's all that's gonna happen. But in this game, we're not even gonna call him Vex, we're gonna call him Flex because of the way he's been just absolutely destroying Minui in some of these situations. The true shot barrages have been great, and right there flexing a little bit of the positioning also. Mid lane, there's a bit of a scrap going down, but it looks like it's not gonna amount to much.
Kenji does burn his flash to be able to get away from that one. But now looking at the state of the game, 17 minutes in, we have about a 4K gold lead going in favor of Winthrop, as they have been putting some domination. They have been putting some presence onto this map. It almost looked disastrous for a second when Mordio had a bad early game, but he was able to return that with the pressure bot lane. And ever since, it has been the Vex story who's been landing these pop shots, these mixed shots, these true shot barrages.
To me now, I think for Wildcard, the game comes down to how well you set up the initial play on your team fight, right? If you get the perfect combination of the Xin Zhao and the Orianna, things look great. Oh, wow. Just dead.
Ooh. Just dead.
Just dead.
Just dead.
There's too much front-loaded damage. I love that term here, just because, again, you walk in, Ivano hits you with an ultimate, you're getting hit with a Q, you're getting hit with a W from just the Vex alone. Then you're getting hit with, like, the Gale Force, you're getting hit with a Q, and auto-attack from Mordio, and you can see what that does to a poor, squishy ADC's health bar. It's gone. There's nothing there.
Well, a tower will be returned in the bottom lane. Alorum focusing it down. All that being said, though, as he said, HP not there, ADC not there. Gonna be 2 towers picked up over on the top side for Winthrop, and now the fight going on between Mabud and Lorum. Lorum starts to return it, but Mabud has that Meganar bar coming up soon. He sidesteps beautifully onto Alorum, and he will take down Alorum, but a teleport comes in. A new challenger has arrived, and it's gonna be Strompest, but Strompest is fed to the wolf. That wolf gonna be Kenji this time, as he grabs that kill, and it's a great play coming out of Winthrop. Mabud showing great prowess there, but they are not done. True shot barrage on the back end. Doesn't get him, but it doesn't matter. Mordio still cleans it up.
Mordio is a monster in this game. Everybody is a monster in this game. Right there, Mabud basically found, effectively, I wouldn't say it's a solo kill necessarily because Kenji was there, but enough of like a meaningful solo kill to actually pressure back Alorum, who wasn't able to sit there and just do as he pleased in the side lane the way that he normally does on champions like this to try to give them a consistent source of damage or a consistent source of gold to work with as the game continues, right? That's starting to get shut out as well. And when that starts to get shut out, you look at everybody else. And again, I want to still postulate that the real way that this team eventually ends up winning in a game like this is that Xin Zhao is able to deliver a ball into the right situation, and the shockwave is enough to just like destroy a couple of members' health bars to allow for Alorum to get an ultimate off, to be able to chain into the wave and things like that. But so far, Wildcard has remained spread out amongst the map, and Winthrop has kind of been picking them off in individual pieces one by one, and it's led to this 7K gold, which makes it all the harder to land one of these massive combos, to land one of these big team fight wins, because you just don't necessarily have the damage to be able to contest against this team. And now Winthrop's going to force your hand with the dragon, right? In 5 minutes time, once this third dragon comes up, they're going to snag it pretty easily. They're going to start forcing onto Baron. They're going to force you into situations where your team fight's going to have to come together, and you have to play it perfect against a team that's beating you by a significant margin.
See right there, pressure applied over towards the top section. Can we stop this, Dean? Can we stop the true shot barrage calls, man? They're just so intense.
The best part about this is, once again, another member barely lives because of the E that comes out from the Orianna. That Orianna shield, necessary, because if it weren't for that, he dies to that. At the very last instance, he was able to press that button and make sure that it was not going to crush him, because it would have killed him outright if it hit without him paying attention like that. So props to Strompest figuring that out with the fast fingers, like you said, all costing him, of course, the 2 towers in the bottom lane now with the second Rift Herald. Surely getting some work done on that bottom side, making it super hard to push out very far as Alarm, because he's got to go so far up the lane.
Yeah, you really got to push out if you're Lorum, because if Mabud catches that lane push towards you, well, Inhibitor Tower is now gone. That is an exposed inhibitor that Wildcard are defending. Strompus over, as here comes Griffin. He's running right after Mordio. Alorum shows up as well. Kenji and Vex are there, the bot lane of Winthrop. Begin to return some fire, return some damage. Wildcard, they don't want it.
I think
now is not the time.
Griffin just got big brains right there. Okay, we'll wait for the fight to come through. I'm not going to harass Griffin too much about that.
Tidal Wave comes out. Mordio now in the front lines. Looking to jump in with Killer Instinct. It's going to be Minowi. Cannot take down Mordio. It's going to be Griffin falling first, but here comes Mabud. The bar is almost charged. Meganar comes out, waiting for that Shockwave to go through it. Actually, Shockwave's already spent. There's no resources for Wildcard Gaming to fight back against Winthrop.
Those ultimates were burnt on both sides really quickly, and it amounted only to Griffin going down. A lot of that was just based on the fact that there was a bunch of damage thrown into both sides, but it was spread out so evenly that just Griffin going down before the fight had actually started just means that they get to take this, because the only person with an ultimate is the Gnar. This would have been a moment to attack had they had their jungler back up, because there would have been nothing and it would have been a mini Gnar, but they can't. They just can't contest. There's too much damage between Mordio, Vex, and Ivano. With everybody up and available, there's no way to contest, not to mention you don't have a smite, so you can't play for a fight and you can't play for a Baron steal, and that just leads to Wildcard getting even further behind in this game. 8,500 gold down now. 3 dragons down now. They've got next to nothing. This is a Crown Ezreal, and you have very few ways to try to contest him on the background. That's not to even speak about the fact that Ivano's almost on 2 items. Mordio just finished a BF sword on top of the Collector, and Gale Force is already in the inventory. And really, Mabud hasn't found an amazing ultimate, but the Flash and the ultimate are there and available for when a team fight breaks out in the next 2 minutes. It's looking dire. Wildcard, I feel like, are on the absolute last straws of what their composition can accomplish. They have to somehow deny this dragon.
They're basically just looking for some form of wombo combo, you know, a Shockwave, Tidal Wave, any of those to sync together, stacking that CC to be able to follow up with damage. They just can't get their foot in the door. It's now Winthrop setting up a siege. Both in the bot lane, you have Mabud with an exposed inhibitor shoving in a minion wave in the mid lane. The rest of Winthrop getting this minion wave to crash into the tower time and time again. The Baron buff, there's not much left in the wheelhouse of Wildcard to fight back.
There is not. They're continuing to siege between mid and bottom lane. They're trying to make sure that the mid tower doesn't break on top of the bottom tower, which is already down. I wanted to see if they could actually link up those 2 timers just to make sure it was near impossible. You can see, oh my goodness.
Oh,
Trompus as well.
Out comes the Shockwave. It lands onto Mordio. Trompus gets caught out by Ivano. Ivano will take him down, but the fear beyond death finds Ivano. Alorum getting that kill as Mabud leads the charge of Winthrop into the base of Wildcard Gaming.
Goodness gracious. It's really hard always to try to pick out exactly who the MVP through any of the games we've actually seen today. I think this one's obvious. Mordio is going crazy on this Graves right now. He, in the early game, commanded everything, and now look at the damage. He brought down Pockets before there was even a chance of that fight coming through, and that is just Winthrop just muscling their way into the base, taking down the bottom and mid inhibitor, and nothing to respond with. They've got 40 seconds for the Dragon. They're just going to take that one immediately. The Baron buff's going to secure that position for them easily enough. And you can see it all started. I think it was even maybe hunting for Strumpus. The ultimate combination Vex. Never mind, man. The true MVP of this game is Vex's True Shot Barrage. I loved Ivano there too, because Ivano found a pressure into the backside as well as a fear into Alorum, and yes, Alorum ended up trading onto Ivano, but the fight is already over once this happens, right? Everybody's too scattered, there aren't enough members to actually fight. Wildcard's trying to maintain control of the river, but Mabud's behind him, and he's got the ultimate as well. You gotta be real careful, Pockets loses half his health of True Shot Barrage.
Those 2 shot barrages are doing way too much damage. Now Mabud leading the charge once again for Winthrop. Standing with that Meganar form, saying, I dare you, Wildcard.
They gotta get
I dare you.
Yes. The problem is when he goes to mini, there is a chance. So I would like to see them kill the dragon now, before there's an opportunity for them to actually turn in and maybe kill the mini Gnar. It's still tough because they're still down an absurd amount of gold. They're not even going to try for it, it looks like. Yep, they're just going to get the soul. It's not huge, right? It's a static shiv on every single character, but it is meaningful. It's really meaningful when you've got the amount of damage that they do right here and right now, and especially with the amount of poke that you've got in Vex and everybody else. It's just going to be too miserable to try to fight in a 5-on-5 situation. I feel like Wildcard, the siren song's going off because they are on the last legs possible. This game is probably going to end sometime in the next minute or 2.
Here comes Wildcard as they begin their siege. Inhibitor down in the mid lane, inhibitor down in the bot lane. Winthrop see one more tower to get the double super creeps to come in. More mystic shots come in. Another onto Alorum. Alorum really posturing up to try and find Vex, but Vex is just being a menace here. He knows he has the arcane shift. He's in no real danger. Knows he also has that True Shot Barrage, which has been doing a lot of damage in this game. Deceitful amount of damage. I can't even say deceitful because we've seen so many on-screen kills with it. Now the minion wave crashing to the tower.
Yeah, Strumpus trying to hold this one back to the best of their abilities. It's actually Wildcard who's playing this pretty immaculately. Griffin goes in. They're going to try to find a combination of ultimates. That's a lot burnt for basically the defense of a single tower. And on the other side, you can see Mabud is just being an absolute menace. He's led an entire wave into the bottom or Nexus tower, and that might just be a taken Nexus tower as the rest of the team floods in with the mid wave.
It's a last stand on wobbly legs. Wildcard trying the best they can to clear out these minion waves, but Vex is still getting these shots at the Nexus towers. One more auto would finish off that one. No?
No. They're just going to take top tower. They don't care that much.
Just going to walk away. Just being very careful about this one. And here we go again. Griffin looking to jump in. There comes the shockwave. They're able to get one down. Mordio falls, but the rest of Winthrop are still here. And Vex is uncontested as he goes right after Minui and takes him down with the Mystic Shot. The Fear Beyond Death still did some work, though. Members of Winthrop have fallen. The entire top side of the map for Winthrop has fallen. Strumpus and Minui down for Wildcard Gaming. This is going to be a successful defense.
And they found the only thing that could possibly get them back into the game. The combination of Griffin with that shockwave got them onto Mordio to remove the Graves, who is probably the most gold, if not close to the most amount of gold inside of this game, underneath the tower, while simultaneously taking out the majority of that wave. And that meant that if you wanted to keep fighting underneath of it, you're fighting under a tower. That's why Vex couldn't keep fighting under there, and there was nothing else on the other side to really come back to. Yes, they end up getting a couple of kills during the course of that, and you see Mordio's got the most gold. When they removed him from the fight completely with that combination of ultimates, they took out so much. That option, now the door slammed on it because the Guardian Angel is completed for Mordio, so that will not happen a second time inside of this game. But Wildcard at least bought themselves a few more minutes here. Precious, precious minutes necessary in order to continue to fight back against this team, although again, the Baron buff might spell their doom once again.
Yeah. Not Baron buff. You know, you got 3 minutes left on the Elder Drake timer as well. There's plenty of places that Winthrop can force the hand of Wildcard, try to force them to make a play, or else the game can be ended in a matter of seconds. Now Baron picked up by Winthrop. They're going to begin their siege over topside.
They do. You do see at least, actually, a wave and a teleport coming in. Really trying. Mabud's got Flash and he's got E coming up here in the next couple of seconds. If he gets onto Strumpus, this could be problematic.
Yeah, this is going to be the end right here. Slammed against the wall is going to be Strumpus. Mabud takes him down. 3-member strong is going to be Wildcard. 2 strong. Let's just say 2 weak at this point. 1 weak. Alorum's the only one that stands. And he will fall. So will Wildcard. Winthrop are not done. Hawk, they heard you talking all that mad trash. Manny, we're on your side here. Winthrop is making this a series.
What a play from the side of Winthrop. This is a roster that, again, coming in, I think this is probably the most underrated squad coming into this kind of tournament, especially as a number 1 seed. Nobody would have expected them to come in as a 1 seed in terms of these matchups. And against Wildcard, I think it was clear they were the underdog, at least in terms of perception for a number of people. That was insane. That was a really good performance. Mordio put the team on his back in the earlier stages, kind of took things over. Vex did so much with the Ezreal pick that he wasn't able to accomplish in game number 1 and turned things completely on their head. The bottom side crumbled, and that was the foundation of Wildcard. Wildcard fell to absolute ruin once that bottom lane was removed.
It was some good stuff. If you look at this match, you can see so many small moments where if Winthrop didn't make that play, you could very easily see it going Wildcard Gaming's way. One of the ones that pops out the most, you were talking about Mordio, it was the play bot lane, because he got shut down real early into this game. Mm-hmm. He forced that play bot lane, and that is what gave him the momentum to be able to stay, to be able to still be an offensive figure. An offensive figure he was. That front-loaded damage, we talked about it during the cast, it was immense.
I can't give enough props again to Mordio, not only for this game, because it was insane, and he absolutely devastated this game and made it so hard for the side of Wildcard to play. But again, stepping in for Frost Forest, stepping in for an experienced member of the team, and stepping in as a new jungler for an organization over the fall, only been here for a couple of months. He's looking like a seasoned pro. He's looking like somebody inside of the amateur and collegiate scene that could absolutely go crazy on a number of different rosters. I love to see it. If the champion pool expands and he starts looking really good on a number of different picks outside of just some of the comfort ones that we've seen, he could be an absolute menace. We love to see that kind of development come out. That's kind of what amateur is all about, and Mordio is kind of epitomizing it right now, taking his team to game number 3, the West of Winthrop, also having themselves a fantastic game compared to what happened in game 1. And I'm so interested to see what Wildcard want to do with their side selection, whether they want to go to red side, get some of the juicy counter picks. Do they take away the Ezreal? Do they take away the Graves again? There's so much intrigue here.
We got so much excitement in the series right now, and we have a series just waiting just waiting to be unfolded. Winthrop versus Wildcard, it's bringing it. And the analyst desk want to bring you some analysis onto that game. We're going to throw it to a short break. When we return, we'll get to just that desk. Izzy, take it away in just a moment.
All right, welcome back to the desk. Winthrop heard us talking smack. They heard us suggest that Wildcard might take the series 2-0, and they brought the scoreline back up 1-1. We have thoughts on the draft, especially on the side of Wildcard. Manny, do you want to break that down a bit for us?
Yeah, so taking a look at this draft early on, we had a couple questions about Wildcard's draft, sort of from the very beginning. A couple problems with that we identified were there didn't really seem to be a priority shockwave target really on the side of Winthrop. Where if you take a look at it, it's like, well, really, who does Orianna really want to use the shockwave on? Realistically, she's probably not going to want to use it on Nars, probably not going to want to use it on Graves. Vex and Ezreal, or Vex is ideally going to be at the start of fights at least too far away for her to think about shockwaving conceivably, because she's going to just try to look for R's into the fight. And, the Ezreal, if he's paying attention, could kind of just E out of it. So we thought it was kind of going to be difficult because there wasn't really much ball delivery. There wasn't really much engage, right? The best that they had was Griffin on the Xin Zhao. We were obviously really scared of Alorim's Urgot. We weren't really certain about the Gnar counterpick into it. I don't think Mabud was very like incredibly effective on the Gnar. It was able to like neutralize the Urgot, and he was able to become a presence in team fights. But that, to me at least, seemed more down to how Winthrop played out the rest of the map rather than his specific play top lane. But overall as well, we were just I guess just confused about what the Orianna's role was. It seemed like Strumpus might have been banned out a little bit in second rotation and kind of had to default to that Orianna, and it might not have been his I guess preferred choice.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. Oh man, I like how Rebel said it before the game. They're not called Winthrop, they are called Winthrop, as they do manage to find it. I'm convinced at this point that the universe is just trying to prove me wrong, but never fear, I still believe in Wildcard for the next game. But yeah, the Orianna blind pick was really strange. A lot of safe blinds were banned out. I would have loved to see LeBlanc come through right there, but I think aside from the draft, more than anything, though, I think you would agree with this, Manny. It really just came down to Winthrop actually had a lane to play through, unlike game one, and they did so. And it looked a lot better here in this game for them. I mean, we take it to the early game. So much jungle attention down here towards the bottom side. Mordio gets spotted, actually, by that melee minion going up too far, but they don't care. Remember, this is an Ignite Graves. Mordio has picked the summoner spell to fight Chunks out Griffin big time, and the Ignite is still coming back up off cooldown. So coming off of this play, they're able to, push in this minion wave, move into the enemy jungle, contest the Krugs, and really what it comes down to is Pakis, an out of mana, half health Nami, face checking in Ignite Graves. You can't do that, Pakis. Gets taken down. In general, I think we were a lot less impressed by Pakis on the Nami this time around. Maybe the coin ending up tails in game number 2 as opposed to game number 1. And Mordio, really nice mechanics right there to pick up the second kill as well. And that ended up being a huge play because not only was there the 2 kills going down there to the Graves, but also a whole lot of farm lost under tower consistently every single time the Graves came bottom. This Kaisa was dropping more and more and more, and Minwi found himself in a pretty big hole as the game progressed, and Vex only continued to get stronger.
Yeah, and Manny, sitting 1-1, especially after such a rough game on the side of Wildcard, how do they come back in game 3?
Well, Wildcard, they've got a bunch of veterans on their roster, right? They've been here before. They've been in elimination games. They've been in tight places. I don't doubt that they can get it together here. The interesting thing about Wildcard, or at least what I'd like to see them improve for Game 3, is I'd like them to try to draft a bit of a more cohesive team comp. It didn't really feel like they were playing on the same page in that game. It looked like they were trying to do different things on different sides of the map on the other time. For example, in one play, Alorum got cut out 1v3, Strumpus TP'd in, died again, and then, on the other side of the map, Pakis died trying to, Ward Rift Herald by himself, right? And it's those kind of, disconnected plays that Wildcard kind of need to get past, they need to avoid, I think, if they want to move forward. It was also just, kind of difficult for them to play that out, obviously, based on the draft, but I think that if they can get on the same page, really just gel together more, I think that's going to make things easier for them going forward.
Yeah, it felt like both the teams almost kind of swapped roles from game 1. I was talking about how I had so many concerns about Winthrop just not looking like they knew what they wanted to do in game number 1. And this game, it was Wildcard. Wildcard sort of felt like they were trying to respond to everything. It was once again a very reactive style, which worked extremely well for them in game 1. But here in game 2, Winthrop didn't miss. They had a lane to play through. Mordio pathed a lot better, and although they had a really nice play to get first blood early on, there wasn't really anything else going for them, and they sort of just continued to hemorrhage gold across the map. So it looked a little bit like a solo queue game in a way. So I'd really like to see that cleaned up from them, because I feel like Wildcard looks like they're still better in a lot of their individual roles. I'm liking the way Griffin is matched up against Mordio, having a good early game again in game 2, despite later on falling further behind. And the bot lane has been pretty back and forth, and especially in mid lane, Strumpus, I feel like, has really been keeping Ivano down in both games. The Vex was pretty invisible, I think, for most of game number 2, despite coming up with the win. It was extremely impactful in the late game team fights, but for the better part of the game, it really was Graves and Ezreal doing everything. And that's not to say that Winthrop didn't play exceptionally well to a win condition. They absolutely exploited that bot lane and played very well to what their composition wanted to do. It's really interesting seeing these teams sort of take turns almost not quite knowing what they want to do. And I'm wondering if in game number 3, now both teams will be able to have their footing and kind of go blow for blow with each other a little bit more.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, right, that Wildcard have kind of been, off the mark so far, and that, like, obviously Winthrop are doing a great job coming to play this. And yeah, just like you said, they obviously Wildcard this whole series, and really in a lot of games this tournament, seems like they haven't really been playing super proactively. They've kind of been sitting back, waiting for the other team to make mistakes, because they're saying, oh, look, we're all veterans, we're all these great players who've been in the scene for a long time. We're going to capitalize, they're going to mess up. And, sometimes that doesn't happen, right? Sometimes, Mordio is going to get big on the Graves. The bot lane is going to win out really hard, and it just becomes really difficult for them to come back. And they just look so disconnected across the map in the mid and late game.
Yeah, the teams are 1-1. It's anybody's series from here. Manny might go 2-0 on predictions today. We will have to see. We're going to send it to the casters for game 3, and they'll get started on the drought.
Welcome back to the casting desk and our coverage of the series between Winthrop and Wildcard. And Dean, Winthrop brought it back.
Living up to the namesake, man. Winthrop always bring it back in the end, being able to take us to a game number 3. Incredibly of interest. They were able to get Mordio back into things. Vex was able to step up into a really positive role. I was very happy with the way that Winthrop was able to pull that out. And now Wildcard, they get their test. They get their side selection. They go to red side. Now they get their counter picks in a number of different lanes. So that's going to be an interesting little forethought of, not only Alorm, but also Strompus pool and what they're going to be able to do. But to me also, I feel like the crux of this team that I've seen time and time again is their bottom lane. It feels like Minwi and Pockets, specifically, when they're succeeding, the team is succeeding, and when they're failing, it's harder for this team to really come together and win out big games. How do you make sure that Minwi and Pockets, the 2 youngest members of this squad, are going to feel comfortable?
And it's such a strange sighting, because there's so much experience on the top side of the map when it comes to Wildcard, Alorm, Griffin, and Strompus. You were talking about it sometime during this, that, Minui was brought up as that rookie that they're trying to shape and develop. You are seeing the shape and development there, but this is where he needs to hard pivot. This is where we need to start seeing, the most critical gears turn in the machine that is Wildcard.
It's going to be necessary, of course. I think there's a number of times during that game in which I think his positioning was punished quite a bit from the side of Winthrop, and I want to see that fixed, right? In game number 1, that wasn't as big a problem because he had the back pocket Soraka, so it was like, okay, you could lose half your health bar, they're not going to follow up because you're getting it right back because the W is going to be able to help you out. The same thing can happen if you have a Thresh or something along those lines. What's actually really funny is Minwi reminds me really heavily of Scooped back in the day. He was on earlier, and Scooped had really bad problems with positioning and occasion very early on in his career as well. I remember watching some of the VODs with like a coach, and we were talking about it, and we were like, yeah, his positioning's a little rough, but he's a very talented player. Minwi's having some similar problems. So I'm hoping that those growing pains can get fixed, and I'm hoping that Pockets can help him out. But making sure that he's successful, again, for Wildcard feels really, really necessary for them to really contest, especially when Vex continues to go back to these super safe picks and is just a brick wall that you can't really beat down in the earlier phases of the game.
Yeah, Vex being on the Ezreal, kind of reminds me of what we saw earlier with Stixxay, able to play safe and play back and still get that very strong gold lead, enabling Kenji to walk out. Vex having a good performance, the rest of Winthrop showing up pretty well as we start to head off into this game number 3. We're going the full distance here today, Dean. Both games making it to 3 games.
Yeah, the other side actually didn't get a full 3 games, so they are the chumps in this situation. They didn't get either of their series to go to a full 3 games. We get all the action, Mr. Eric. So.
But we're also kind of losers in this because, Immortals did get that 2-0 versus Taco Gaming on Taco Tuesday, Dean. On Taco Tuesday.
All the times to lose. I wonder, do you think Taco Gaming actually recruits Tuesday if he comes out of retirement to join the mid lane? Are they beatable on Tuesdays? If this is going to be like a Monday, Tuesday league, like they literally cannot be beaten on Tuesdays with that combination. So
I love you, Dean. I love you so As we get into the draft right now, Winthrop going to take away the Rise, Corki, and Tom. Nothing too much going to change right there. Wildcard never going to allow Mordio to ever play that Kha'Zix. Nope. But much more focus onto the bot lane this time from Wildcard as they ban away the Caitlyn and the Ezreal.
They do. Interestingly, Kenji going right for the Lulu. after everything else has been considered during the course of the series. Of all the picks that would end up getting taken off the board, the Lulu is the interesting one. I would have expected the Graves almost at the first pick, taking us back to like 2020 region of like B1 Graves 100% of the time, B2 Jin, something like that. And so the Lulu is at least of interest to me. This is Minwi on a champion that I think is a little bit more downplayed as a carry, which to me, it indicates maybe a lot more focused on Griffin, maybe a Viego coming out here, or something from Strumpus that's a lot more consistent damage oriented, something like the Azir, the Cassiopeia, the Rise obviously taken off the board, the Corki taken off the board, so you don't get either of those. But this, I think, is Minwi a little bit more downplayed in a composition like this. They understand that Vex is going to be really hard to aggress against. They can't set their bot lane on really positive footing to begin with, so they're not even going to try. They're just going to take something that's a bit more oriented towards the team and play a little bit more CC based in their AD goal.
And I don't think it's just that as well. I think this is also a hard denial over towards Vex, grabbing the Jhin. Because again, for the start of this year, the Open Qualifiers and the Circuit Qualifiers, Vex has heavily been playing the Jhin and Ezreal and slowly pushing towards the Caitlyn. Now, every single one of those champions are off the board.
Interesting. I wonder how far down into the pool we end up with the ADC, because there's some spicy little things that come about in the later stages that maybe we'll talk about if we get to a chance to it in the draft. But instead we get junglers here. Back again, once again, Griffin with the Lee Sin in his kind of stock standard pick, and Mordio actually gets the Xin Zhao a lot more stock standard. Man, the Aphelios would kill me. Like, not because the Aphelios is bad in this situation by any standard, but more so just that I wanted something spicier out of the AD role. I was really hoping with everything else pinched off. The Jinx is also available. Okay, I'm definitely not getting anything spicy or anything along those lines. Instead, it's just going to be the stock standard. Vex going to go with the hyper carry of the week, being able to take that into the Jhin. This is a really good matchup statistically from the Jinx in terms of like the long-term thing. I'm pretty sure it had like at one point during this season had like the Jhin had 18% win rate against the Jinx. That's like just unreasonable.
I want to keep in mind, though, that this is not a Vex champion. It's not something he plays often whatsoever. No. The last competitive recorded history of him playing this champion was in 2021 summer, at the start of summer. So it's been a while since he's been able to pop on this. It's not going to be the most comfort, but it is a Jinx after all. Just right-click and win, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least something like that. And especially in a lane against the Jhin, you're feeling good because, like, wave clear is perfectly fine. You've got a Lulu alongside you, so it's tough to find an aggressive lane pairing that's really going to be able to beat you down. You can see they're anticipating maybe more of a melee focus here for Palkus, trying to go for, like, the Nautilus, maybe the Leona ban, maybe the Thresh ban as well, just to make sure that that's off the board, to ensure that that's going to be pinched out altogether. So there is that. Strumpus on his LeBlanc, I do like that quite a bit. Again, to me, the two things I was considering, of course, the Viego and then a consistent damage mid laner, both obviously off the board, which means I'm just completely wrong about everything all the time, always. Wildcard likes to do that to me, unfortunately. But I'm very happy that Strumpus is on the LeBlanc, because I think he was an incredible LeBlanc into the summer of 2021 and even into the later stages of the year. And I think it fell by the wayside, and people just didn't remember it, because at one time, this is perhaps one of the most fearsome tournaments or fearsome champions he had in the pool.
And with that LeBlanc being locked in, you get a lot of damage on Wildcard's composition. I mean, Lee Sin brings it, Jhin brings it, LeBlanc brings it as well. The response from Winthrop is going to be one of the more classic counters to LeBlanc in taking that Lissandra.
I'm not always in love with this in the modern era. I feel like the way a LeBlanc plays her chains can really destroy a Lissandra in the wrong situation. If you break the defensive tools of what a Lissandra typically goes for, that means that like the LeBlanc just gets instant trade pressure. It feels like the best way to combat this, I've talked about this on previous streams into the previous year, is electrocute on the Lissandra to try to out trade. And in the last game of the day, your boy, your bud, he picks the Mundo. I can see you were looking, trying to get the message from our producer right there, and you were just looking away. I was trying to get your attention.
Yes, baby! Mundo's on the board, and it's played by my bud. Dragoon, you did me dirty, man. You were supposed to play that champion. While my bud has a similar champion pool. Friendship ended with Dragoon. My bud is my best pal now.
It's such an incredible pick. I love this right here, because now you've got Jhin LeBlanc as your two main damage dealers, right? Aatrox is picked into it. Alorum obviously understands the fact that, like, when you have 4 CC moves on the Aatrox, it's going to be easy to get past the passive of what the Mundo is going to be able to go for, and you need something that can dive in the earlier stages. Aatrox at level 3, Lee Sin at level 3, legitimate threat to put Mabud on his ass, unfortunately, underneath that top tower, because that's kind of what you have to do to a Mundo to make sure he's shut down. But if he gets into the mid game, if he gets into the late game and he's perfectly fine, who's killing him? Who's gonna kill him? Jin's gonna kill him? No. Jin's not gonna kill him. Is LeBlanc gonna kill him? No one's gonna kill him. He's way too big of a beefy boy to be able to have that happen. So Mabud, he goes for the big pick, the big stone wall, hopefully able to soak that damage.
And Mabud has been a player. We did praise him earlier for being able to play both strong side and weak side. So if he does fall behind, he is not one of those who hemorrhage too much when he is camped, when a tent is set up there. So I am personally excited. I am personally ecstatic to see my boat on the Mundo. But yeah, this is the last one right here. Is this going to be enough from either side to really be able to net in the win for the series?
I feel as though Wildcard have put themselves in a situation where their draft is comfort, and they've also given themselves more priority on their top side to win the game rather than having Minwi take more of it. But again, the threat of potentially losing to the Mundo, just like out tanking you, even like the Lissandra getting bulky, like combine that with the Lulu, the Xin Zhao being able to soak damage, it's problematic. Was this actually the Vex instead of the LeBlanc? I'm not sure if this was a correction. I didn't hear in our ear from the producer whether or not that was the case, but I want to make sure whichever champion we had. Yeah, the Vex was banned, so I doubt that that's the case. I'm assuming that's still the LeBlanc, so that's perfectly fine. Yeah, we were just making sure that that is the case, that the LeBlanc was in the mid lane, so no worries about that one. I feel like this is a well-rounded composition from Winthrop. I feel like they have good early impressions. The only thing that can cost them is if their laning phase goes really poorly, right? Like if the LeBlanc starts snowballing against Lissandra, it's hard to stop. If the Aatrox starts snowballing against the Mundo, it's hard to stop. If you get gold into Minwi, he actually just shreds through Jinx and has a bunch of damage for the Lissandra before she gets to press ultimate as well. So I feel like Wildcard have to strike very quickly.
They definitely do. If Vex is able to get a footing into this game, compiled with having the Lulu, Hell Pix really does do a lot to add on some of the DPS for someone who fires as fast as a Jinx will. Given that paired up with the fact that you do have a very, very defensive front line to work with, both with the Mundo to run interference, but just having the Crescent Guard to try and run some distraction, as well as Lissandra freezing up anyone who can get there. That being said, though, Wildcard do have some mobility answers. They have a lot of champions who can get towards that backline, who can get through a lot of the resources that Winthrop have.
That is the fear. I think Winthrop is in a position where they've designed their team composition around the one real piece of it, which is Vex, right? Vex on the Jinx is going to be in a position where he is going to be able to carry for this team because he's got a bunch of support, he's got a bunch of frontline. This is like the dream of an ADC who wants to carry, right? You put him on a hyperscaler, you put a bunch of members that are in front of him that are big, bulky with CC, and you let him go to town, right? This is standard trademark team fighting 101 type composition. To me, like you said, I think Griffin showed in game one that he was capable of getting onto an Ezreal, which is really impressive. I think Aatrox has real problems potentially for later in the game, but the biggest one to me is Strumpus. I think Strumpus LeBlanc is the biggest threat to Vex during the course of this game. It's fast, quick damage, and the assassination threat is really, really there. If you do play with vision properly, Vex has to be incredibly conservative with the positioning, and that might win you enough time where your damage is enough to bring down some of the frontliners. If you compound everything from all your champions into Mundo or into one of the frontliners all at once, they will go down, and that means that Vex can't step forward. Vex can't step into this meat grinder of a team. It's about how quickly can Vex win against their frontline versus how quickly your whole team can win against the frontline of the Mundo and whatnot.
All right, everyone. Final game of the day. Every series going the distance here on the LCS Proving Ground Circuit Qualifiers. Winthrop versus Wildcard Gaming. Game number 3. Let us know in chat who you think is going to win. Will be Winthrop University getting the Cinderella story, continuing their journey. Will it be Wildcard Gaming? The amount of experience, the development of NA Amateur. It's a tough one to call. Lots of splits on the predictions here. Split on the casting desk as well. And we'll see who's able to take it, Dean.
I feel as though walking into this split, it was really hard to imagine Wildcard being in a position where they weren't going to be a top 4 roster with this team, right? You have Alorum and Griffin who've been a part of a bunch. Minwi was a great addition. At the point, it was Rhino as well with Minwi on the bottom side, and you're like, wow, that's a really good engaged support. And you combine that with Strumpus, who's a veteran who also went to scouting grounds and did all this incredible stuff over the summer, joined SLU and all these other rosters and things like that. It was really incredible. This Wildcard roster looked incredible, absolutely nutty on paper, right? It was like, okay, they can compete with 100 Thieves, they can compete with Golden Guardians in this first tournament. this would be a pretty bad loss, right? To lose out in the round 4 of 8, to lose to Winthrop too, which is a team that nobody expected to be here. I'm not trying to like put this as like this is gonna be traumatizing for them. It's just more so that like the expectations for this team are high enough to be in the top 4. This feels like a game that like Wildcard winning this, it puts them in the position they should have been in all along, which is what we want to see because Wildcard has had some bad losses this year, or at least during the course of this like open qualifiers and things during this tournament. And you want to see them overcome those kinds of challenges to really make it into that final stage of the tournament where they're going to feel among the kin of the rest of like who should be where they're at.
I always remember hearing a lot of conversation from coaches about one of the most coachable positions to put in a rookie player. And it usually comes down to the marksman role, right? Because everyone else is usually taking care of a lot of that macro presence for you, even your support at that point. It is a good foundation to try and build up a player. And I feel like Minui has been built up quite well by Wildcard, being able to get as far as he has with this roster. You know, at the end of the day, even though it is a lot of prominent members, it is a lot of experienced members, still NA developmental as Ivano looks to escape this one. Sidesteps the Sonic Wave. A flash over the walls. The Ethereal Chains are going to lock, but Mordio will get there in time and look to find more. He gets the knockup. 3 Talon Strike goes off, sets his sights onto Griffin. A couple more autos goes through, but nothing to really lock him down. We'll be able to get away. Close exchange in the mid lane.
Back and forth between the two. Flashes burnt on everybody but Griffin, which I think does end up coming out in the favor, obviously, of Griffin being able to hold that one until like the level 6 potentially comes through or anything else. Both flashes being burnt felt a little aggressive. Mordio going over Ivano, wanting to join him for the additional CC to maybe run people down is big. But the biggest aspect of this, of course, is that Griffin, if he wants to play to topside and to dive this Mundo very soon, because again, level 3 is here, Alorum wants to try to do that before he hits the level 6 mark and can really regen, Griffin's going to need the flash to be able to help him do so. And now with the flash, he's going to go back onto Ivano.
Nice little sidestep there, dodge to change, but here comes Griffin. The claw over the wall, but the follow-up with the resonating strike. First blood, done easy on the repeat gank for Griffin.
Yeah, great from Griffin right there. It wasn't even the chain that got hit by Strumpus. They weren't able to lock him down into place. You just hit the Q very necessarily and then held it for the appropriate amount of time. Again, Griffin's expectation of attacking towards the top side, getting the LeBlanc into a good place is already a solid game plan. And right here, this is the situation. The E combined with the Q held it until the E had actually come out. Ivano had no other choice. You don't take it, you die. You take it, you get chased down by the Q, but maybe Mordio is able to come back. Not going to be the case here. And so that's just going to be the W for Griffin. Didn't have to burn the flash yet again. Isn't finding his way to top lane, which I think is actually a much more problematic for this team is the Mundo rather than the Lissandra. But one way or another, just trying to accelerate some of the early game.
So state of the game so far, Wildcard able to get that first blood from earlier off the repeat gank of Griffin, and nothing much else to really happen. Now Griffin focusing attention towards his top side, only getting the clears for the time being as he does take that reset, coming out of both junglers. Camp spawning over on the bottom side for Griffin. Should have his attention over there. Mordio is having his camp spawn over towards the top side. An eye onto Drake as that spawns within the next 3 seconds. Mordio should not be able to path into that direction too early.
And Mordio is going to path towards bottom side. So it's a question of, does Griffin go immediately for the dragon by ganking into bottom lane? Because the back had actually just come through from Vex and Kenji. So they're going to come back with the Berserker Greaves a lot faster. Minui's holding the wave on his side. They're going to look to maybe back now. But if Minui doesn't back, he's going to be down itemization. Which kind of, it deflates a little bit of the ability to go after this dragon really quickly, which would be, if they knew where Mordio was right now, I'm guessing they probably would have tried to back with Minui, and then they just would have attacked on that timer, or they would have walked directly at the dragon because of the back timer that had been taken by Vex or Kenji. But instead now, Mordio is going to end up on the bottom side of the map with 2 freshly backed bot laners, and that's going to make it really difficult to try to take this dragon, unless they somehow once again find a gank onto Ivano of almost level 6, and if they can do it before that, maybe there's a chance. But right now, at this point, I feel like there is a contestation that can come out from Winthrop if they want. If not, they don't have to, right? One dragon's not going to break the entire game. They're putting pressure onto Mordio a little bit inside of the jungle. That's 3 members diving on him.
Wow. They're going deep onto Mordio, and they're actually getting the damage before he can get underneath the tower. Looking to finish off the job is going to be Griffin, but Griffin returns fire. Goodness. Griffin will be able to take him down. It's going to be a double kill going over to Ivano, though. A little bit of an overstay coming out of Wildcard as they attempt to really commit to that gank onto Mordio.
Little bit of stooging right there into the Lissandra, which is a bit interesting because a number of members actually going down. Mabud has level 6. So I don't think they can actually make this happen. You're just trying to burn the ultimate maybe, but even that's not going to actually get burned. It's just going to be Mabud walking out of that situation. And right there, the attempted dive just to put Mordio on a bit of a back foot. I get the intention once again from Wildcard, but diving multiple members on top of each other into an AoE mage, just like there's something bad about that, right? Like especially Alessandro, who's got all this lockdown, just feels like it's a complete waste. And again, this felt like a timer that Wildcard could have used the dragon. They could have looked after it. They could have tried to push on the bottom side, or bullied out the mid lane and walked towards the dragon, but instead making that dive happen force them into a situation where they're going to lose the first Drake here to Mordio and Kenji instead of anything else. And they did give 2 kills back over to Lissandra, which kind of cancels out the initial gank that happened in the game.
That's 2 kills over to Ivano. He's going to enjoy that, considering the matchup he has against Trompus and LeBlanc. First Drake getting picked up by Winthrop, as they are going to grab that Hex Drake for the time being. Looking to roam out towards the river. You can see Minui trying to play very safe over towards this bottom side. Watching his vision, watching his flanks very carefully, because there's a lot of people missing, but they're about to reappear over towards the mid lane. Jumping in is going to be Strumpus, gets caught out, but not much else to worry about when you can return to that distortion.
Yeah, importantly, I think what was happening there was that Minui was checking the blue buff to see if it was available. And because it was available, they didn't know where the enemy team was. Because if they had taken it, then they would have probably been out of the jungle at that point. Because the blue hadn't been taken, they haven't gone for a full engage. So this was information getting collected from Wildcard. And now, Griffin shows up, but there's 3 members, including Ivano here. I don't think you want this. They're going to leave the Grump, I think, necessarily in this particular case. But they're not going to lose anything else. So it is just blue for blue traded, where I think it was Griffin got the one on the other side of the map on the top side. And that one was taken, of course, by Mordio with the support of the rest of his lane. I just want to take a quick stock standard of everything else across the map. 10, 11 CS advantage. I think a wave is pushing, so it might only be like 5 or 6 minions on the top side. Vex currently leading by about 3 waves on the bottom side, maybe 2 waves, something like that, after the rest of the minions are picked up here, which is big because, again, the Jinx is your hyper carry. You want to make sure the Jinx is getting safe, free gold in the laning phase, so farming is super important. Eventually, plates are going to be more important, and that's where we're going to see Ivano start to make moves towards the bottom side of the map. The Mundo is going to be undivable, so I think Wildcard also is going to lean into bottom side. So I anticipate after a little bit more time, we're going to see more interactions from both junglers to the bottom side, just to make sure that you have one winning side lane that's going to end up going your way.
So recalls coming in pretty much across the map here for Wildcard Gaming, both in their mid lane and their bottom lane. Watching closely onto that pathing you were talking about as Griffin starts heading towards that top side, but again, very undivable. What I'm wondering about, is going to be the reverse end of things. If Mordio attempts to do anything onto Alorum, of course, the World Ender does provide a lot of healing. They would need some source of grievous wounds if the ultimate is not already up at that point. Seems like Alorum will do it the other way around as Alorum starts going into the jungle of Mordio. Waiting for that poke, he is spotted out as he takes down the control ward. Mordio trying not to provide too much information on what's going on as Alorum is catching his pathing, goading a response out of both Griffin and Pacus.
And importantly, they're made a Rift Herald shift here, right? Vex is actually trying to hold the wave, I think is what was happening right there, just to make sure that they couldn't take additional plates. But they've already gotten 2 on the bottom side. Oh, they don't get 2 on the bottom side because the wave clears there. Very well played by Minui. If they get both, there's a potential that this ends up being like perfectly even, right? Because you get 2 guaranteed plates out of the Rift Herald. So if you just give that one away and then you get 2 plates on the bottom side, you're fine with that. Or at least in theory, you're okay with that because it can force the back 2 plates to get brought down instead. But here, they can't quite capitalize on that one. So it's just not going to be the case. Vex is still feeling fine because, again, you're still getting free gold on the bottom side of the map. But like you said, it's a question of what does Griffin want to do now? Because you have to do something somewhere. Bottom lane is a place where you could get Minui ahead. You can try to get Strumpus further ahead. I think the Aatrox isn't a bad choice either because in a team fight can be a devastating piece of a lot just because of how much damage can be put out in an area.
The ultimate going to be used by Ivano to protect himself from the gank that was coming in. Super Mega Death Rocket. Just a little bit of a cameo in the mid lane as it passes by. But it will enable Strumpus and Griffin to start walking over. They're going towards the top lane.
Yeah, this is what you wanted to see. I wanted to see this a long time ago. Mabud not going to get dove early in the game. Ultimate's probably going to get popped, and they're going to look for a kill immediately. They've got the damage. Probably 4 kicked into the wall.
Ooh, kicked into the wall. Takes a couple more tower shots, but it was executed exactly the way they intended. Taking down Mordio before too much regen can come in, and going to put down the Rift Herald as well. Slow comes out from Kenji as Ivano comes in just to clear the wave.
I was really worried right there that the trade was going to go down, and that was just going to be an absolute disaster because it was Griffin who was under threat of being traded, and that means the Rift Herald wasn't going to get dropped, and all of a sudden the play just goes completely out the window if you lose the jungler in a trade and you don't get the Rift Herald down to get the plates.
So plate's going to be picked up right there. It's not going to be too big of a lead picked up off a wild card, but all the small things do add up. Only 200 gold separating these teams right now.
There's like, do you feel the tension in this game?
I do.
I feel like I'm speaking on eggshells at this point because of how much tension is between these two teams. They're right there neck and neck with gold.
I've been hardcore staring at the mini map, and my heart is just pounding at the moment.
It's like you're trying to track as much as you can across the entirety of the game because you know every single movement is so important here between these two teams because it makes the difference between whether you go on to semifinals or whether you get booted out at this stage in the tournament, which obviously neither team wants for a number of reasons. But it's a very, very big game that's on the shoulders of all these players who have had such just immaculate performances in a number of situations. Both teams very deserving to be here, and both teams definitely have their own claim to semifinals. As Dragon respawns, that's bottom side. Winthrop control that one. I do want to note really quickly, Mordio has not gone for the Gore Drinker, which is really typical on the Xin Zhao, has instead gone for the Trinity Force, which is a little bit more damage in his back pocket. Of interest to me, just because of the lack of time that we actually see that one. Top tower probably going to go down to just the minions on its own, and that's going to give a little bit of gold back to Alorum, but I think they're okay with that one. Winthrop, giving gold over to anybody is not ideal. The Aatrox is a very mean member, but it's not like you're giving gold over to somebody who's going to be able to just pure win the team fight. It's Mordio.
Ooh, now Winthrop trying to press that bot lane advantage they had earlier. A curtain call, be careful, gets blocked by Ivano. Sonic Wave comes out, Deadly Flourish going to find the root onto Ivano. Ivano has to flash away to be able to stay alive, able to get out. No one going down on the side of Winthrop, but the health bar is so low. Wildcard almost getting a lead there.
Going in on the consistent engages inside of this jungle pressure against Wildcard. They look for a 4-on-4, and it's just not there for them. I don't think they were able to get everybody together, and they weren't able to cluster up enough people where Vex was going to be able to tear apart the team, as well as having to burn both the summoners during that. So I wonder if Vex got pressured out way too quickly inside of that one to find anything. As Winthrop has found themselves at the very, very bad end of a losing gold advantage, down 2k right now to their opposition after the tower went down. Mordio just going to get hunted as well.
Mordio getting chased down. Gets a little bit of damage on the pockets, but none of that was ever going to amount onto anything. Ivano now underneath his tower by his lonesome. Some backup coming. Kenji, Vex walking back to the lane. This will not be a tower dive onto Ivano.
No.
Retreat comes out for Wildcard.
But it has been an immaculate game here for Griffin, who continues to find pressure, right? It wasn't this, like, super fast aggression that came out from him to really win things over, but it's very calculated pressure in a number of places that I think were a little unexpected from Winthrop, right? I wasn't expecting the Lysandra gank, I was expecting the Mundo gank, but they made that one happen at level 8, whether he has the ultimate or not, because he's still not all that beefy, and that means that you set Alorum up for a massive tower take, you set up Strumpus to be able to break out of mid lane with a couple of kills in the earlier stage. It kind of reduces the Lysandra's effectiveness as the pure counter pick in that matchup. It opens up for Strumpus to sit there and scale a little bit longer, and it's come to fruition in a 2,000 gold advantage. You can see Vex is still doing fine. Ivano still has a good amount of gold as well, and again, the Trinity Force is such an interesting thing because it allows for such a difference in terms of like dueling power with this Xin Zhao, but the interesting part, just the important part, I think, for the side of Winthrop is just that Vex is still inside of the game. You're not completely falling out, and you're going to be able to still get the damage out of that champion, which is the important bit. If the Vex on this Jinx is still within gold range of everybody else and has the itemization to do the damage, the fight is never going to be over from Winthrop. They're always going to be able to turn the game around, which is a little terrifying. Wildcard either can find a way to stop that or accelerate this game so fast that there's no way to generate that 5-on-5.
And it does seem like they're trying to do that. You can see them pressing the advantage that they have as they get deeper and deeper vision towards the blue side jungle of Winthrop. That tower already gone. They want to get some siege going on to this mid lane. Will be a minute and 50 seconds before a Drake does spawn. Getting down this tower would mean opening up a lot of vision for Wildcard Gaming. Alorum waiting in the wings, especially on a Hex map. That vision can be very deadly, but not going to commit to it for now. Instead, trying to trace exactly where Mordio's going. Now focusing over towards the bottom lane. Going on to Ivano. Actually had no clue that Mordio was in that area just a second ago. He will be chased down. Griffin getting caught out here. Ivano can't lock him down in time. Running right through the middle is going to be Paucus. Runs interference, and Winthrop get nothing.
both sides looking for a little bit of shenanigans towards the bottom side of the map. This just like the constant play that's coming out. Like you said, the mobility was actually what saved Wildcard pretty heavily right there, because the Rakan and Lee Sin were able to disengage out of that situation pretty quickly, and that could have been disastrous for Wildcard, especially with the dragon spotting. When you've got a Chemtech Drake on the map and actually a Chemtech Soul, I mean, just to speak about how powerful this has literally been removed from the game. This is just happens to be on the final patch that this is still on, but this dragon is actually removed from the game because of how powerful it is, which is why Winthrop is also at a pretty significant advantage, in my opinion, right this moment, because they're closer to being able to take that dragon. Now, the gold advantage compounded with this Rift Herald should set up Wildcard in a position where not only can they look to just advance their gold lead if they really want to, they've got 2,500, they could just take a tower with it, but better if they can yield a response out of Winthrop that gets them their first Drake. They slow down the dragon stacking, and they set themselves up to begin stacking for that Drake themselves.
Fearless is Strumpus as he just jumps forward, popping that Q onto Vex. You can see the state that this game is really in at the moment. Wildcard being so driven by Griffin. 4-0-0 thus far, already completed his Gore Drinker, has the Executioners calling on top of that. So a great response to Mabud over there in the top lane. It's a good game for Wildcard, that's to say the least, as we head into the midpoint of this Game 3 of the series.
Yes, Tower's probably going to die here. Minwi has the Rift Herald and is just able to take it down without even utilizing the Rift Herald whatsoever. So, I think pretty important that they were able to snag that one, because again, it does open up the possibility of the Rift Herald being used to maybe get the dragon, but they don't even need that either because they've got everything running all at once. As it's topside pressure that's being put on, they're trying to hover around the window. No crazy rockets here today. That was for our first series, not for this one, unfortunately.
Good attempt, though. Good attempt.
Yes.
You got to give some respect to that. Winthrop are putting some attention towards his top side now, trying to alleviate a lot of the bleeding that Mabud was doing at the earlier stages of the game. He will be able to grab that tower, so it will be a good chunk of gold going back to him to get him towards that tanky state, as he does need to be that wall for Vex, who is scaling up through this game so far. Rift Herald placed in the bottom lane, tier 2. We'll get off another charge, as Wildcard are just going to go straight for it. Trying to come in the flank was Pockets, but was caught out by Vex in the process. Now Wildcard looking to retreat from this. Look at the wings. It's going to be Mordio. He's going for the flank right now. Pockets will be bumping into him soon. Teleport going to be channeled. Alarm going to join this fight, and here comes Alarm. Goes after Vex. Vex has to flash away. Mordio now leading the charge for Winthrop, as Wildcard, the battle lines are drawn. Who is willing to cross it right here? The answer is going to be no one. 2/10 of a situation.
Couldn't quite actually get into place right there was Winthrop. They looked so hard at getting either Mordio or Ivano into a position where maybe with the Lulu follow-up, they were going to be able to generate a massive engage. But you can see there's flashes up on 4 members on Wildcard. They aren't getting a really sticky engagement to allow Vex to throw damage into anybody, and they're not going to take a bad engagement and potentially lose this game outright to Wildcard this early on, right? They still have their 2 dragons. They still have their scaling that they can try to bank on for the later stages of the game, so they're not going to throw things away quite yet. They're feeling comfortable just letting this one continue to play out, especially like you said, after they let Mabud kind of get back into it with that tower take on the top side. They're going to feel good about having just this frontliner that can soak a bunch of damage eventually. We're waiting for that time to come, because again, they still have to be able to make 5-on-5s like that actually work, which is perhaps one of the more difficult parts of this composition as the game continues, especially with Wildcard as strong as they are. But at the moment, Wildcard get to continue their little dominance about the map. They get to kind of continue controlling how the game is playing out. They're going to try to deny Winthrop any opportunity to really let the Jinx go crazy inside of a fight.
Even though it is a low-kill game, and, you know, it's just a 3K separating these two, it doesn't really tell you just how well Wildcard are doing in this game, because they have been getting a lot of momentum, a lot of forward vision, and a lot of engagements just like this as they find Mordio all by himself. They're going to look to chain it straight into Ivano. Curtain call gets opened up, but the Claw is going to get Ivano to safety.
There's no response anywhere else on the map either. It's just Winthrop being able to use some advanced vision inside of the jungle that they have claimed as their own to be able to find an additional pickoff. As Wildcard continue, again, it's Griffin dominance. It's a Griffin diff pretty much this entire game thus far. Mordio hasn't been able to stand up to him. He's ahead in farm, but that's about all he's ahead in, because Griffin's ganks have been immaculate, his counter ganks have been insane, and now everybody getting pinched on the side of Wildcard, or on the side of Winthrop.
Going on to my butt. Here comes the rocket, trying to find. Will it be?
Finds it.
The last auto onto Strumpus. Able to get the kill. Now excited is going to be Vex. Can Winthrop turn this around? Getting excited, going for more. Ivano looking to go in, gets the root, able to lock down Alorum and get the final autos for Vex to be able to get the kill. That is 2 down for Wildcard. Now you've lost your solo laners, Winthrop. It shows you what happens if Vex is able to come online.
They're walking to Baron, man. They're going to walk to Baron. And this could be a very massive play to completely differentiate how this game is going to play out, right? Griffin is still alive. They could try to find a steal, but they've got all 5 members up. They've got Mordio up, their own jungler, and they've got more than enough damage to burn this down long before Strumpus or Alorum should be able to get back to this one. At least it's halfway down. Strumpus might be able to TP in and try to force something as everybody piles into the back of the pit. Too much damage coming out of the Baron to stay back there. I want to see them kind of, they're just trying to body block, make sure the Lee Sin can't actually get in the pit. They need to force it down if they're going to go for it. Pogus!
He's too low. Here he goes. He jumps in. He doesn't get it. Baron going over to Winthrop. It's 2 down now as they continue. My bud is able to grab one, but Ivano falls. Pockets now going after Pockets. Here comes the autos. Vex is looking to find more. Super Mega Death Rocket finds its mark. A double kill for Vex. Winthrop have turned it around. They are back in the game, Dean.
The game is right back on its head. They did exactly what they needed to. They've set up the team fight where Vex is just able to sit behind everybody and no one's able to pressure into the backline. Strumpus got caught at the front of that fight, and after everything is said and done, this was an engagement onto Mappa. This is the guy that's soaking a bunch of damage, and you can see how little he takes and how much Strumpus takes in the big grand things. You can see Vex even flashing forward to start this one off. How much damage they put into Griffin, how much damage they're able to put into Alorum after the re-entrance from Ivano, and it's just Vex throwing autos forward. That's all they need to do to win this game. They go over to the Baron. They're able to win out that engagement, even though Pockets finds this massive W. They just have too much centered around this Jinx, being able to put out the DPS necessary. What does the health bar look like? I'm really curious, because Vex is trying to stand on the side. He doesn't stand in the range of Pockets, I don't believe. I'm trying to make sure that this is correct. They were trying to body block as well for the Lee Sin, and the Lee Sin tries to come over the pit as the last seconds came through, but we're getting more of an engagement on the map, so we don't get to see the very tail end of it. But right back into this one, Winthrop competes. Vex in a position to carry after that massive gold influx he had to have had. And now the soul point is once again being threatened by Winthrop.
They're going forward. They're going forward. And Griffin is diving in. Griffin gets low. Griffin goes down. Mordio takes him down. Now Winthrop are going forward. They're looking for Minui. Minui falls low. Vex is able to grab him.
He's going crazy.
Vex gets the double. Vex is excited. Vex finds it all. He gets the triple kill. Wildcard are routed. Pockets just taking the recall as Winthrop are in the driver's seat.
I've been calling him a defensive ADC for so long, and finally he comes out of his chrysalis to take control of this game. He grabs this Jinx, he says, I'm going to put the team on my back, I'm going to do all the work, and he does all of it during all of these team fights. This is incredible. This is another setup. He is completely untouched. The rest of Winthrop are doing an amazing job acting as his shield, but what a sword he is to be able to swing at the squad that's coming out here. Mordio gets on top of Alorum. Pockets keeps trying to find these flanks. Griffin found a really nice flank as well. He kicked Vex out, but nobody's there to punish him. Nobody's there to get him. Vex with an amazing stopwatch as well. Prevents any further engage. I thought Strumpus was going to jump over the wall, but he missed on his distortion, and that lets Vex continue to throw in autos. This team has set themselves at a gold advantage. Vex is on a triple kill. They're probably more than enough gold to carry this entire team, and they're one dragon short of the Chemtech Soul.
They did it against Immortals AoE. It was an upset no one expected. Winthrop are looking to do it again to Wildcard. Out of nowhere, they pull a gold lead. They get the team fight win. Everyone else just needs to be a pool of health for Vex to buy time to land those autos. This game could not get any closer, Dean.
No, it cannot. The threat, though, again and again, Wildcard has found amazing ways to get on top of him. Griffin was able to find a kick in that fight, probably the wrong direction, but was able to find one. Pockets has found insane plays into the opposing backline, and that has been nuts to think about just how easy it's been for them to get onto Vex. The protection is there, but they have to be careful because he gets kicked right there.
The kick. They're going right after Vex. Strumpus is there. He's by his lonesome. Vex goes down. Wildcard are feeling it. They go after Kenji, looking to finish him off, but Kenji's able to back up in time as Bud is going to soak as much damage as he can to buy Winthrop some time. He's soaking, he's absorbing, he's a tanky Bud, but he lives no more. Minui takes him down. Wildcard, they turn it right back into their hands.
This is the threat. If you kill Vex, there is nothing left for this team to offend with. They need their Jinx to be able to make this composition work. The Flash was not quite up. It's back up for Vex now, so he has that defensive tool. He's going to need a Guardian Angel eventually. They're going to do damage to this base, and it's going to be enough. They're going to be able to kill a couple kills actually here.
They're going after Griffin. Griffin has fallen. Pockets in the backline. Cooldowns are not up. They're going after Alarm. Alarm falls as well. Minui gets tagged in the back. Avano chases him down, and he will fall. There's an exposed inhibitor in the mid lane, Dean. Winthrop are marching forward.
I don't think they're able to close the game off this timer specifically. I guess they have like 25 seconds till Griffin's up. They have 30 seconds till everyone else is up. They're easily taking the inhibitor. My question is, do they have enough to be able to push into the full base? I think Winthrop are going to go for it. I really don't want to see them throw on a base push like this. It would be tragic, and it would also rob us of any more team fights, which we desperately want in a game like this. That Strumpus getting hunted down. If he goes down, the game is pretty much over at that point because they can just walk in. And I love this call. They grab the inhibitor. They don't have the time to get anything else, so they walk out. After the pick on Vex, right? They step way too far up. Look at the health bars right now. There's 2-3 members at half or below in terms of health. I guess Alorum's actually at 60%. And Avano is still this AoE mage that can do quite a bit of work inside of this one. Not to mention, again, this is a lot of damage on Mordio. He finds the pick on a Griffin immediately. Alorum took a bunch of damage. Pockets can't really beat his front line because he's going to die immediately. And the time bought by Avano is enough for the rest of the team to follow through on this. The 3v5 underneath of the inhibitor tower was more than enough. Did he find this rocket? Did we not catch it? Oh my goodness.
Way.
Vex is nuts, man. He's actually cracked. Legitimately.
Oh. This game, my heart is pounding, Dean. I don't know who's going to win, but this is League of Legends right here. This is North American Developmental looking to go the extra mile, looking to go the distance, looking to do whatever it takes to get to that academy scene, to get to that pro scene. Wildcard and Winthrop are duking it out right here and right now. And Winthrop, they're the ones with the inside track on the Baron. Baron is now spawning. This could be the last moments of this game winding down, Dean.
1 minute until the Dragon also spawns, which is another massive win condition for Winthrop. If they grab Baron here, which they are doing, because they're shoving out Griffin, making sure he's not going to be able to get in, it's half-health Baron. They got to find a way in, because otherwise they're just going to push out mid lane. They're going to be able to try to like work their way into the river. Look for something. Griffin, what you got?
Griffin, he's looking for it. Griffin wants to hop over the wall. He tries. He can't get over. He can't get over. He's denied. Baron goes over to Winthrop. Griffin's on the run. Alarm is low.
Vex got him.
Lands. Vex is an animal. He's a beast as Avano goes forward. A double kill for Vex. It is done. The Cinderella story continues, Dean. Winthrop University have done it!
They have come in as like the lowest possible seed. They're the lowest seed here. They come in as the #1 after beating Dare, almost unexpectedly in a number of different situations. They came in to beat Wildcard Gaming. They're gonna take it. They're gonna go to the semifinals.
Winthrop University! Don't doubt them, Dean! Never doubt them! They have done it! They have upset before, and they do it here again today against Wildcard Gaming!
They don't know what Luthrop means. It's Winthrop for a reason. They come out to win all the time, always. The #1 collegiate roster from last year came out, rebuilt from basically the ground up, only a handful of returning players, a substitute jungler in for the tournament since the beginning of the event, and they are walking into top 4.
That was an intense game. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit emotional right now. Oh, God.
Oh my goodness.
You have no idea. It's not just that Wildcard won, it's the intensity. These players are putting everything on the line here today. They're all developing players. They're all chasing a dream. It is sad to see that some have to go, but Winthrop is the one that so many have doubted, so many have looked down on from the moment they started up in the collegiate scene. Last year they were doubted, this year they were doubted, and even with a completely different roster, my bud and the boys, everyone, Mordio, they all show up. And they do another upset, dude.
They do another upset. They are 1 upset from getting to our grand finals. They're 2 upsets from winning this tournament when nobody could have ever possibly predicted that Winthrop was going to make it in the end. I can't give enough props to this team. Wildcard came out with some solid strategy. They came out in game 1 swinging super hard. They looked clean beyond belief in the first game. It was
Yeah.
Mordio that kind of stopped them in game number 2, and they weren't ready for the Vex bomb that was laid in game number 3. And I want to talk about that for just a second because it's been a minute. Kenji at one point was also in like scouting grounds, but wasn't touted as too high of a prospect, right? Vex was in like way long ago Challenger Series and really hasn't been around all that much. He's been bouncing around on teams and stuff. This is the first time we've really seen these two come alive like this inside of the amateur team. It's been a long time coming for these two players and such a journey for them. To watch them be able to step in and play like that, especially Vex, who again, in my opinion, has been kind of quiet for so long, to come out and have a performance like that with a roster like this, with a bunch of newcomers, it's the stuff of legends, man. That's how dynasties are made right there. That's the first step for Vex.
In a draft that targeted him, Rebel, we saw it earlier. They banned away his Ezreal, they banned away his Caitlyn, and they took away his Jhin. He hops on the Jinx, and it was like he didn't miss a beat. Hasn't played it since May, Dean. Hasn't played it competitively since May, and he shows up here today. Vex, hats off to the rest of Winthrop University, because they earned this victory. They fought for it with everything they had, and it's moments like these that just makes me love the Proving Ground so much. Oh my gosh.
My favorite thing also is like we're gonna get a chance to see like the upgraded bracket a little bit in the future, but right now you've got 2 LCS affiliated amateur organizations in 100 Thieves and Immortals, right? You got Golden Guardians, and then you have the collegiate Masters in Winthrop that step alongside that. Of all the teams I would have thought that could have made it to that position, I would not have imagined that Winthrop was going to be on the names of Titans, right? But coming from collegiate, doing a bunch of collegiate casting myself, there's nothing that makes me more proud about the way that scene is developed as well. There's 5 or 6 teams that are legitimately capable of swinging with some of the best, right?
Dean, we used to have the days of nothing but Maryville being the collegiate Titan, nothing but UCI. So many now.
It's just incredible, and I really have to say that is the case. To see that come through, I want to talk a little bit more about Wildcard, because Wildcard they didn't deserve the kind of pass up that they got. This was a massive upset for a reason, right? Like nobody would have expected Wildcard to lose. I think even the second game was a little bit surprising for both of us, even though I know you predicted Winthrop, but it was a little bit tough to stomach that Wildcard even dropped that game just because of how talented that this team really is, right? But this has been a little indicative of everything that's happened to the roster. There have been bad losses since the beginning of open qualifiers. This team has found themselves in positions they probably shouldn't have been in, and this is kind of like the icing on the cake, where like they lose to a team that was not expected to be anywhere near even playoffs, let alone this deep into playoffs. It just feels, I don't know. It's a pretty sad way to go out if you're wild card, right? That's not how you expected to leave this tournament, and it's unfortunate. They're an incredible set of players. I'm expecting more growth out of them, and in the next tournament, I'm guessing they're going to come back very angry, because that's kind of what these players are capable of doing. But a performance that was deserving of a very hard hat tip to the side of Winthrop, because they went crazy in that last game.
Hats off to both of our teams, all of our teams that played here today, taking it to a series and just making this ever so competitive. That's going to do it here for the casting desk. I've been Eric Testrix Beltran, of course, Dean, Rebel Fox, Merrick. We're going to throw it over to the analyst desk. Izzy, Manny, Hawk, take it away.
All right. Thank you, casters, for closing up these games today. Winthrop's win against Wildcard Gaming 2-1 brings us to the conclusion of the quarterfinals for the Unified Proving Grounds Circuit Qualifier 1. Hawk, I'm so sorry none of your predictions today worked out. Take us into draft for this last game of the series.
They should have put me on the other stream. I was 2 for 2. But 0 for 2 on this one, as Winthrop had to come back in this game. But yeah, the draft was pretty interesting for both teams. I actually quite liked both drafts. It felt like Wildcard had a pretty classic dive comp. This was something straight out of 2018 with the Aatrox and the Rakan and the Lee Sin. Something, that we haven't really seen in a while, but it's tried and true. Kill what is in front of you composition, as that rhymed. But Winthrop, it seemed like, although their composition was individually a little bit less coherent, some dive, some peel, some mundo, they had counters up their sleeves. Jinx, Lulu does exceptionally well into Jhin Rakan. It's really hard to dive on top of them. Lissandra into the LeBlanc heavily neutralizes the lane. So there was a lot of great options for them to play through, and that made sort of diving on top of them extremely difficult. It's hard for a dive comp to kill a Mundo. It's hard for a dive comp to kill a Jinx with a Lulu and a Lissandra standing next to her. So lots of options available to them, and it ended up being extremely influential in the team fights. As we saw, Wildcard, when they were on one item, they took a ton off the map. There was one dragon where they took down 3 towers and the dragon in one fell swoop, and really got to see them flex their muscles. However, it was in the team fights where it was Winthrop and specifically Vex that shined.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about those team fights, but before that as well, that sequence of towers was really, really nice there from Wildcard. What effectively they're able to do is basically, actually, never mind. We're going to get right into this replay here that effectively decided the game here. Now, this was, I don't think that this was like fantastic from Winthrop. Like Wildcard overcommits, right? And they get a, right, they get picks. What I really like here, besides the commitment here on the Strompist, is what Winthrop do, what they decide to do next, right? Because they get these kills, right? There's a great teleport in from Ivano. They're able to lock up Alorum. And they say, okay, it is going to be a 5v3 here. What are we going to do? Like, we're down maybe 4,000 gold, right? Our comp's not scaling yet. The series is on the line. And they decide, hey, this is our tournament lives at stake here. We're going to flip this Baron. And I respect this call so much. They're basically saying, like, hey, if we get this Baron, we're in the tournament. If not, we knock out Wildcard. And they stick in there and are able to secure the Baron and win the team fight here. And this just is what completely turns it around from Winthrop. And I'm like super glad they decided to do that rather than, play it safe. I didn't think they were going to get another opportunity like that in the game, and neither did they. I'm really glad that they were able to commit all the way for that, and it wound up working out for them. They were able to take control of the game back there, and they had pretty much equalized the gold after falling so far behind off that Dragon and Herald play on the bot side of the map. I mean, like I said, hats off to Winthrop. They were fearless right there.
Yeah, definitely. You just love to see that winner's mentality. It really showed through, and I feel like the growth of Winthrop from games 1 through 3 was apparent right before our eyes. In game 1, we mentioned it a lot. Winthrop looked a little nervous. I talked a lot about in the jungle, in particular, some suspect pathing coming through, and that was remedied in game numbers 2 and 3. We saw this Graves and this Xin Zhao path a lot more aggressively, a lot more intelligently to be able to enable their lanes. It wasn't nervous and reactive at what Wildcard wanted to do. No, it was throwing down the gauntlet, and watching Mordio really grow throughout the series was a pleasure to watch. Vex coming online in those last 2 games, doing so much work for his team. The damage charts were insane in games 2 and 3. So I'm glad to see that the team was able to come out of their shell and show us what they were really capable of in those 2nd and 3rd games, and able to pull out a win in a very tense game number 3. I mean, it was 4-2 in kills for quite a while. A very slow early game. And then, as we mentioned, at one item, it sort of exploded in Wildcard's favor. But Winthrop was able to bring it right back through superior team fighting, and they are now on to the semifinals. Collegiate is not done yet. My bastion of amateur has been destroyed. Golden Guardians Academy and Winthrop are there. So awesome stuff for them.
Props out.
We're going to send it to a quick break. Thank you, analysts. You guys will return shortly for one last wrap up. But I'm going to be returning here even more shortly to do an interview with Winthrop's Vex. All right, welcome back. I'm joined by Vex, the ADC for Winthrop. Congratulations on the win. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I feel great after beating Wildcard.
Yeah, I just found out, I guess, that you guys don't have a coach. What is the team dynamic like for you guys? Because not only are you the only remaining team in Pool 2, you guys don't have a coach, and you guys are just taking names one after
Yeah.
another.
Well, we are pretty much just player run coaching, player run drafting. Like we do our review on our own. Our support helps with that a lot. Like he's kind of like a coach from a player role, from a support role. So he just does drafting, and then we do review after the game. So it's kind of like having a coach as a player. So
Yeah.
we're fine.
Yeah, and he
without having
plays a
coach.
mean Lulu, so
He's pretty good at Lulu. I told him to first pick it. So
nice. Good stuff. And how do you guys feel being the only remaining collegiate team in this tournament?
I didn't even realize that until like yesterday. I'm actually surprised. I thought Maryville would come into top 8 as well, but I mean it feels nice. Like we just won the most recent collegiate tournament, so and then we're the only college team that got top 8. So I feel like it makes a stand that we're probably the best college team in the league right now. So yeah, I'm excited
For
to see it all.
sure. Yes, and that season's getting just started up recently. How
Very
was
recent.
you guys had your first weekend this last weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were versus like some like gold silver team, and they didn't show up, so we just got
Oh.
it easy to.
Yeah.
The games for
Well-
that haven't gotten that competitive yet, so yeah.
Yeah, not as tough as,
Not as tough
what
as
we've
this
got
game.
going on.
This is we care about this way more right now. This is the real deal right now. So yeah.
The priority is the team. Now we've seen more collegiate teams in this tournament than we have in previous proving grounds. What kind of a standard do you think Winthrop is going to be setting as, the top performing collegiate program in amateur right now? Do you think we're going to see more collegiate teams appear here and there in the feature circuit qualifiers?
Yeah, I mean, I think college is a collegiate scene is just a great way. It's pretty much just amateur teams that the players go to college. I mean, it's competitive. I think it's like more college teams are just gonna keep popping up with good rosters, and they can. I mean, I feel like any amateur teams can like join a college if the kids want to go to college, and yeah, more teams will start popping up and be competitive in the amateur scene. So yeah.
Now, you guys ended game 1 feeling pretty behind, but again, that's
Yeah.
no skin off your nose in terms of your guys' competitive history this tournament. What was the strategy for coming back in the series?
So we just kept the spirits high. Like we honestly, top 8 was an accomplishment for us already, and I just like we're just gonna give it our all. If we can win, we win, and if we lose, we're just gonna lose together. And after we lost the first game, I just told us guys it's okay. We're 0-1. We can reverse sweep this. It's gonna be a story. So I just picked my confidence up. I didn't want to have any regrets, and I just gave it my all as well with my team. So I'm proud of everybody on my team, the way we performed. So yeah.
Well, speaking to the analysts, I think they agree with that. You gave it your all, especially on that Jinx in game 3.
Yep.
It was absolutely nuts. Now, are you guys going to be able to keep that positive mental in your semifinals match against 100 Thieves? Is it going to be the extra positive mental going to there? How do you feel?
Of course.
that?
I mean, I'm very confident after beating Wildcard. I feel like 100 Thieves is just the next step. They're not any better, any worse. Even a stronger opponent than Wildcard. I think we can beat them just like we beat Wildcard. So, yeah, I'm excited to beat some former LCS players next series.
For sure. And we're really looking forward to that series ourselves. Thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. Best of luck.
Of course. Thank you for having
We're
me.
going to, yeah, absolutely. We're going to return to the analyst desk for one last quick segment, wrapping things up here tonight. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Vex.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm back on the analyst desk. How's it going? We've got our semifinals bracket is locked, and our producers will flip to that screen in just a moment. We can talk about these matchups. Winthrop will be going up against 100 Thieves next. What do you guys think? Do you think they can take some games off 100 Thieves next?
I mean, look, Winthrop have been a really, really great, team so far this split, right? Obviously, they're the underdogs going in against 100 Thieves next. I think most teams in this tournament would be the underdogs going against them. But, we've seen upsets can happen. We saw it today. Obviously, looking at all these other games, though, 100 Thieves next versus EG Prodigies, that was, kind of what people expected. But, no team really did give Golden Guardians Academy earlier today a run for their money. And it's going to be interesting to see how IMT AoE, or how they do up against IMT AoE, given that Immortals AoE kind of snapped their, their streak of, underperformance, getting only second out of the group there. They managed to beat Taco Gaming. Unfortunately, it is not Taco Tuesday.
No, definitely not Taco Tuesday. IMT AoE looked really good in their win on the Academy stream up against Taco Gaming there. And I feel like their match against Golden Guardians Academy could be pretty exciting. I mean, like you said, if no team was able to take them to distance, you'd have to think that IMT AoE is a better team. So, IMT AoE might be able to do it. Now, this team has been inconsistent. And it seems like a lot of the times when they lose, they're outplaying themselves. But that also does mean that in some ways, they haven't actually found a team that's been able to sort of take them down in a lot of ways. And so if IMT AoE is firing on all cylinders, I actually think they really could contest up against GGA. And as you said, 100 next. They're looking like the team to beat this tournament, them and GGA. And although Winthrop is coming in as an underdog, we've been saying it every round of the tournament, and they're still here. So, crazier things have happened, even though I would definitely bet on 100 Thieves next if I were a betting man. I feel like Winthrop always has a chance if they're able to play the way they were in the last two games that we just saw.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm honestly so beyond thrilled about our semifinals matchups. They're going to be such exciting matches,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure you guys are excited too. Thank you so much for joining me on the desk today. Thank you to our casters, Deserix and Rebel Fox, our wonderful producers, and everyone else at Unified for a great quarterfinals show today. We'll return next Monday with semis. Super exciting stuff, and I hope everyone has a good night.